Hey everybody, how's it going? So the last time we did this, I realized I was talking to myself for the first 40 minutes because I didn't hit a button. If anybody in chat can confirm that they can actually hear this by saying the number 8 in chat, that will be how I know that you can actually see this and you're not just screwing with me. So please type 8 in chat if this is actually working.
Better to tell us now than 40 minutes in.
There we go.
There we go.
All right. Hey everybody, how's it going? So here I am live with Josh Haley, who does a lot of work on Onewheels, and what we wanted to do was respond to the CEO of Future Motion. They did a video, a conversation with Kyle, and as Josh will say, a conversation usually goes both ways. So there were certain points that were brought up in that video. It's great to see that they were addressing them, but there's also a lot that wasn't said. So we are going to bring up a bunch of points that come from the community, and we're also going to have a lot of questions that we pose along with evidence for the questions that we have. So Josh, can you...
Ready to take it away?
Yep.
All right, so I have a prepared statement that we've spent a lot of time writing, and large amount of this is going to be reading straight from this document. So with that, let's get started. First off, thank you for watching the Onewheel ad that you likely just saw before this video, and will probably continue to see pop up throughout the duration of this stream. Future Motion places a very high emphasis on marketing and recruiting new riders. This is a good thing. Their focus on image and optics is spot on, and they successfully make one-wheeling very appealing in a public sense. FM continues to successfully grow the One-Wheel Racing League into a serious sport with legitimate coverage and events. This marketing is great. However, image is not everything. And when we pull back the veneer, we find that some of the underlying truth is pretty ugly. As much as I am not thrilled to be the one who has to bring this stuff out into the light, we're going to go into the closet here today and bring out the skeletons to be examined so we can have at least an honest conversation with Kyle. The cold hard truth is that FM values the prospective customer far more than they do their active riders, as this is seen through a stronger company focus on marketing efforts and than service or support. The value FM sees in you as an individual drops off to near nothing the second you purchase a one-wheel, and that's a problem that has only grown more significant with time. FM's disrespect towards the community is obvious when you look at the history of their relationship with the many aftermarket companies and third-party service providers centered around their product. These are companies who have had their original products and accessories copied and sold by the manufacturer as their own, and have received legal threats and action taken against them. Future Motion titled their latest upload, A Conversation with Kyle, who is the CEO of Future Motion and the inventor, patenter, of the Onewheel. Now, to me, a conversation is two-sided, where each party has an equal opportunity to make their voice and perspective heard to the other. Unfortunately, I was not granted this voice. After my first appearance on this very channel, I discovered that I was supposedly blocked and made unable to respond to the comments on FM's first public response video addressing growing community concerns. Therefore, in place of the sentiments I attempted to share publicly at the time, I instead respond with this video in an effort to continue this so-called conversation. Throughout this message, my voice is intended to represent not just myself, but also a large part of the one-wheel community that may feel like they don't have one. This is a group that is best represented as a collective voice of the community members and business owners who represent not only the most significant wealth of one-wheel experience and knowledge, but can well be said to be those who care most about the sport, the community, and even Future Motion themselves. I myself am not affiliated with Future Motion in any way. The Stoke Life Service network that I and my shop are proudly a part of are not affiliated with Future Motion in any way. The words, information, and sources shared here are community curated and developed and not affiliated with Future Motion in any way whatsoever. The resources shared in this document are accurate and factual to the best of my current understanding, effort, and ability. I take my role in this conversation as a serious responsibility and hope that I am successful in providing a truthful platform and voice for the community to respond in a professional and courteous manner to Future Motion, in an effort to find a mutually beneficial solution where everybody wins. The very document I am reading from has been made available to you, the viewer, in the description of this video. It is my hope that you will follow along with the topics covered and dig deeper into the areas that we will only have time to briefly cover today. The most valuable thing here is an informed customer. Just as I told Lewis in my original outreach message to him, at a minimum, I hope to provide an opportunity to educate, and at maximum, I hope to provide an opportunity to collaborate. If you have any information to contribute towards or update this knowledge base to become more factual, I highly encourage you to do so. At the conclusion of this live stream, we will be leaving this document open to viewer input and look forward to reviewing your responses. We are all very passionate about these boards and solving the problems at hand. If you are new to Onewheel and curious to learn more about why these boards in particular have such a dedicated and die-hard following behind them, I cannot recommend enough that you take the time to watch the float effect. This is a newly released short film that I was involved with over the past 2 years. This video conveys and visualizes exactly what one-wheeling means to us riders in a way that words cannot just describe, and I highly recommend you check it out. I want to take this moment and explicitly clarify that our side of this conversation with Kyle is in no way intended to be slanderous, defamatory, or interpreted as a hit piece in any way. It is a good thing that this conversation is happening right now. By putting our foot down and refusing to accept the shifting status quo, we show Future Motion that the value of one-wheeling lies in the community and not the sole manufacturer. By refusing to accept the erosion of our ownership rights, we aim to ensure that we possess the ability to repair and service these devices once FM either chooses to not support them any longer or is unable to support them for whatever reason, and ultimately serve as an example for similarly challenged industries that consumer power prevails. This community we have built, that we have all built, does matter. We shouldn't be ignored or treated as ignorant fools who can be lied to and condescended like errant children. Only very recently has FM, for the very first time in their 7-year existence, responded to the public outcry that has grown too significant for them to ignore any longer. After hearing Kyle's response, the impression I and many other riders were left with is one of damage control, and not one of genuine effort to solve the problem at hand. With that being said, let's get right into it. Historically speaking, FM has actively avoided releasing standardized technical information, repair or service documentation, and public statements in any significant capacity when it comes to anything beyond marketing efforts. As a result, the best our community can do is formulate and test hypotheses, play hearsay, and inevitably engage in group politics in an attempt to figure these things out on our own. We have come a long way with this method, and with a severe lack of concrete information coming from the manufacturer, it is extremely unlikely that we will get everything right the first time around. As we develop this knowledge and understanding from scratch, we are in an everlasting pursuit to find this truth. When irrefutable evidence is shown to contradict this best understanding, updates are not only necessary, but welcomed. This, in and of itself, is the best that we as a community can currently do, and this precise dynamic is a major symptom of the real problem at hand here. The burden of truth is exclusively and ultimately falls upon the community and rarely ever the manufacturer. This very dynamic has resulted in Lewis being threatened legally by FM. In a previous video, a popular support ticket from a GT owner was covered by Lewis, in which the customer claimed that they believed the motor on their one-wheel GT was serialized and paired with their board, as their attempt to connect the motor to a separate GT had resulted in a board error. Prior to this experience, a similar incident had gained traction within the one-wheel community, in which the same motor swap test was performed with a similar unsuccessful result. At this point in time, there had been no cases confirming otherwise, and with the lack of documentation provided by Future Motion and the manufacturer's proven history of implementing similar serialization measures, this could understandably be considered as a fair conclusion to arrive at. Future Motion has since denied this claim through an Instagram comment reply, and there is now at least one confirmed case of a motor swap working functionally on a GT and without error within the one-wheel community. Although serialization does not appear to be at play here, this does not dismiss the message sent by FM's response to the customer, in which they were denied any service under the stipulation of an internal component of the board, in this case the motor, was missing. From FM's perspective, parting out boards is not supported or accepted in any capacity whatsoever, and they take drastic measures to prevent this. In Future Motion's eyes, the consumer is still effectively left with zero options for getting back up and running, highlighting their prioritization of control over the board post-purchase versus the support of the consumer. I am excited to continue this conversation with Kyle, both personally and as an active member of the one-wheel community. One thing that will hopefully become more clear to you throughout this video is that what FM says and what FM does are often entirely different things. I want to demonstrate some points, share some history, and ask some questions that hopefully better inform the current and prospective consumer base of where Future Motion's interests and priorities lie, focused through the lens of their actions. In short, I want to make sure that we're not just having a conversation, which is nice, but rather I want to ensure that this is an in-depth, valuable, and above all else, honest conversation. This dialogue is and will continue to be critical in solving the issue in a way that benefits everyone and aligns with the interest of both the community and Future Motion. Without this, massive potential synergy is simply lost in the bickering over maintaining needlessly draconian control over the devices FM has ostensibly sold to their consumers. Devices to which the consumer should, by all that is right and ethical, have the ability to do whatever it is they should please without having to take irrational and expensive steps to circumnavigate and counter the measures Future Motion has put in place in a series of escalating but ultimately futile attempts to retain full control. Again, the contents of this document are not my words alone. I am just the messenger. But the message is one of a group effort, and it is best represented by the collective voice of community members and business owners who represent not only the most significant wealth of one-wheel experience and knowledge, but can well be said to be those who care the most about the sport and the community and even Future Motion themselves. I take my role in this as a serious responsibility, and I hope that I am successful in providing a platform and a voice for the community to respond in a professional and courteous manner, and in an effort to solely focus around finding a mutually beneficial solution where everyone wins. Since the company's initial Kickstarter launch in 2014, FM has sold products that continue to offer minor performance improvements in trade for major and ever-tightening restrictions, governing how much freedom and control the owner is actually given over what they've ostensibly purchased. During these past 7 years, Future Motion has stayed completely and entirely radio silent to any and all public outcries for FM to cease and to reverse these trends. The production of Future Motion's latest video feels rushed, and Kyle seems visibly distressed and in discomfort during his message, perhaps even distraught at times. At the same time, the FM social media team has been publicly appearing as a rude, irritated, and seemingly unable to take current events. Or unable to take current events seriously. This is frankly understandable, given the situation FM has put themselves in. Perhaps Kyle had a sense that this video was not going to ring true, and it would simply add fuel to the fire. At the very least, I hope that deep down, Kyle didn't sincerely believe that this would fool the community. I hope that he realizes we're at least a tiny bit smarter than that. Kyle closed off his conversation by saying, "If there's things that we can be doing better, keep letting us know." And this response intends to do exactly and only that. I highly encourage Kyle Dorkson, CEO of Future Motion, Julian De La Rue, the supposed CTO and self-claimed electron whisperer of Future Motion, and Future Motion as a whole, not only to continue this conversation publicly and openly, but also respond explicitly to the questions contained within our side of this conversation, and deliver the answers and questions that we as a community have been asking since the very beginning.
I've been drinking all the water. It's kind of unfair.
Okay.
So where do you want to start?
So we can start with the main argument here. So if we want to get into it now?
Yep.
All right. So the one-wheel community does not want FM to disappear or go out of business. We want FM to succeed and grow, but not at the cost of creating unnecessary and expensive e-waste, bullying third-party manufacturers, and alienating the very community that loves the product in a sport that has evolved. For that to happen, FM needs to change. We do not want prospective riders of one-wheel. We do not want prospective riders to not buy one-wheels. We don't want them to buy new one-wheels. My favorite part of one-wheeling is introducing and exposing new people to all the great things one-wheel has to offer, and it genuinely saddens me to see people interested in getting their first one-wheel only to be dissuaded by FM's policies and practices. If you are considering your first one-wheel, please be aware that there are many used boards available, often local to you, that are still very largely, if not entirely, community supported. These boards are often more reliable and feature-rich than the new offerings available by FM, especially when handled by reputable third-party repair organizations such as the Stoke Life Service Network. Future Motion's actions are concerning. They're acting in a monopolistic way, and the company's actions prove to be increasingly anti-consumer. FM intentionally makes changes to their product and policies that causes the customer to be increasingly dependent on things that only the manufacturer can now provide. Competition would be healthy. FM makes public claims that are outright false and acts in untruthful ways. Kyle did not invent the one-wheel, as FM advertisements claim. Kyle and Future Motion patented the technology and designs for a single-wheeled, self-balancing electric skateboard that came from community developments and projects made years prior. To his credit, Kyle did, however, successfully bring the one-wheel to market, which is not an easy task. Although much of this success is shared with the Kickstarter backers who made this campaign and company successful in the first place. At 7:43 in Kyle's initial video, he states that, "I think there's a misconception that we are totally opposed and we are suing and litigating companies who are making accessory products. While that has happened in certain cases, and while companies have violated our IP, for the most part, we are wide open to letting people build the kinds of mods and accessories that people want to build because they enhance the one-wheel community." While this sounds really good, even with a little bit of digging, one can find that this contrasts with FM's actions. As seen in the brand new GT Owner's Manual on page 33, This states that any aftermarket modifications or accessories will violate your FM warranty. Lost my space on the page. So FM has advertising in the past where they're riding on beaches or riding through water. That is something that they have claimed will violate your warranty. FM is... Lost my pace again.
Take your time.
FM has sent a package of steaks to a one-wheel rider who has seemingly, in a seemingly congratulatory manner, who surpassed 30 miles an hour and nosedived on the GT. This doesn't really bode, in my personal opinion, with the line of rider safety. I'm not really sure why that was done. Additionally, FM's Canadian shipping embargo was issued after M was caught supposedly asking customers to black out hazmat and safety information on warranty repairs that were sent back to their facility via mail. Seemingly as a result of the GT release, one-wheel retailers were told by Shopify, the retailers supporting the OEM's online sales as well as retailers, that the same online tools used did no longer allow that one-wheels are no longer able to be sold on their platform due to the product being categorized as high risk. Additionally, we get into the issue of Samsung 30Q, what's called pink cells. So we talked about this briefly in our last video, Lewis. Samsung 30Q cells were used in the 2018 model of the XR, known as the 4208. Most of the 4208s produced that year contain these packs. The 30Q cells have a known reputation to be less reliable in regards to balancing, a behavior vital to the behavior vital to the function of a one-wheel. The 30Q cells are not of the same quality as the VTC6, what's called a green cell. FM had normally used up until that year. As a result, a significant number of these riders with 42.8s had to send their boards back in for repair at large personal expense. Most of the batteries did seem to fail somewhere between the 400 and 800 mile mark, which would make some of them eligible for warranty and others not. Due to this, the repair community became quickly aware of the functional disparity between the less reliable pink packs and the more reliable green packs, identifying each by the exposed cells visible on the sides of the battery pack. So I have one of those batteries right here. So this is a 324 watt hour XR stock pack. That is a green cell using a VTC6 battery. And then hidden back here somewhere, it's one of the things we should have grabbed earlier.
We're always going to miss something.
Always going to miss something here. So in
As
contrast,
long as you're not bouncing the SMC off of the board like Paul Daniels did on livestream 3 years ago, you're good.
Yeah, so this is the 30Q pack. This is a different cell entirely from what's inside the newer models of the XR. So the pink pack has a reputation to fail more frequently because the cells can lose balance from each other. So they're exactly the same capacity, they're exactly the same configuration. One of the packs is just known to be more reliable than the other.
It's okay, 30Qs. I love you.
Due to this, the repair community became quickly aware that the functional disparity between the less reliable pink packs and more reliable green packs, identifying each by the exposed cells seen on the side of the pack. While this could be possibly forgiven after FM changed back to the VTC6 cells, starting with the 4209 generation of the XR and later with the Pint, it was discovered that the 30Q cells had re-emerged and were contained within the 4212 and 4213 XRs sold during the 2021 Black Friday sale. This came as a major shock to the SLS network, and that FM would use faulty cells again, and adds additional suspicion as to why now all battery information has been removed from the FM app, as well as battery models being harder to identify as new packs are totally covered in foam, making visual inspection and cell identification significantly more difficult, if not impossible. The 30Q reintroduction coincides almost directly with a sharp increase in wholesale VTC6 battery cell prices. Next point to make here, there is an evident disconnect between FM and the one-wheel community. In a practical sense, FM has historically and actively avoided releasing standard and technical information, repair service documentation, and public statements in any regard when it comes to making anything beyond marketing efforts. Firmware updates and hardware revisions are rolled out with no patch notes, details, or even an announcement to the public. Documentation is absent in pertaining to anything beyond surface-level functionality, basic accessories, and very high-level care for your board. Board issues and problems discovered in the real world, including those that are potentially dangerous, are not brought to the customer's attention by the manufacturer, but instead are rarely, if ever, mentioned at all by FM, or are either silently fixed or not resolved at all. This is the case for every single problem that has ever occurred on a Onewheel, barring an extremely limited list of exceptions that are communicated extremely briefly or without much detail, a very recent example of which being the new GT firmware update released yesterday. As a result, the best the community can do is test hypotheses, play hearsay, and inevitably engage in group politics to attempt to figure out these things on our own. It is extremely unlikely that we will get everything right on the first time around, and we are in an everlasting pursuit of this truth. This, in and of itself, is the best we can do as a community currently, and it is a major symptom of the real problem at hand. Socially, FM has a disconnect as well. Of the very large community events that have taken place, FM is very rarely ever seen making rounds or really participating with the Onewheel community at all. I have been to a number of these events personally. I have never seen Kyle at any of these events. I am curious if Kyle's ever shown his face at any non-FM hosted event. The public rider perception around FM is far from satisfactory and only continues to degrade. FM acts in a very anti-third-party and anti-competition manner. FM files frivolous lawsuits against anyone they see as a threat to their bottom line and threatens potential competitors with cease and desists. A few notable examples of this, the most prominent being the JW lawsuit. This is a lawsuit around the communication protocol between the controller module of the Onewheel and the BMS. Newer models of the board are software paired together with a serialization process, and there's a chip that enables the consumer to swap out BMS and controllers as they please. This is something that was possible in older models of boards, but is not possible now. This is a very important lawsuit to the Onewheel community. There is a GoFundMe link in the bio of this video. Any contribution you can make towards that cause is significantly appreciated. Separate to that, Leonard French made a video conveying why this lawsuit stands upon a weak foundation in much greater detail than I can personally cover. There's a lot of great information there. I also highly recommend you watch that. Trotter is a competitor to the Onewheel. This is a one-wheeled self-balancing device produced overseas that is sold in the US. They were evicted from CES. I believe it was 2017 or 2018, if memory serves correctly. They were evicted from the show and removed forcibly. I don't know if it was the request, I don't know the specific details off the top of my head, but FM had Trotter removed from that trade show. Floatwheel attempted to produce a third-party alternative to the Onewheel. They were also hit with a cease and desist. OneWave, a popular third-party application used to retrieve and restore some of this diagnostic state information to an app, was DMCA'd by FM. TFL was hit with a cease and desist for a drop-top fender product that they had developed. Lancer Fangs was hit with a cease and desist for a product that they had developed for the Onewheel Pint. And Onewheel retailers are imposed with restrictions in terms of participation. A few notable of those being, FM retailers are not able to sell or support non-FM accessories. They're not able to sell boards online any longer, and they're not able to service boards in any way. FM retailers are on the hook to cover costs of OEM repairs of boards should boards fail sealed in the box in their inventory. FM strips features and functions from their boards and their products without notification. The FM app is losing more and more features that riders are using and depending on to ride safely. A few examples of this is individual cell voltage readouts that were removed from the official FM app in version 2.0.18. And this particular represents a significant and unnecessarily increased risk to the rider, as it makes it impossible for the rider to fully evaluate the battery health and ensure their own safety while riding. So they also severely limited the diagnostics communicated by the board over Bluetooth and newer firmware revisions. This uses a method which encrypts some of the diagnostics data being sent to the controller. In this way, data can no longer be recovered with a third-party app. In addition to this, the FMapp has changed Bluetooth Handshake, presumably to inhibit OWCE and other third-party applications from acquiring more information. It also removed the ability to see the entirety of the pack voltage within the board. It removed the battery amp hour capacity visualization to the user. It removed the battery amp hour regen value visible to the user, and it removed the board orientation values that were visible to the user. The FM app has also changed the Bluetooth Handshake protocol, presumably to inhibit OWCE and similar app developments that restore now hidden board and diagnostics data. This is really important for a couple reasons. So if we want to make an analogy here, your battery and the BMS that runs it effectively runs like a bartender. And if you own your board, you effectively own this bar, you own this battery. And it's the bartender's responsibility to make sure all the patrons are properly served, and they do that. The bartender handles that by distributing power across all the cells equally. And the bartender will observe the cells and watch all the patrons drink their drinks or, use power appropriately and restore that back when appropriate. If you, the owner, are not able to see how your bartender is running your bar is at risk and you're not aware of it. So that, in my opinion, is a major risk that's not really worth taking. And I am curious as to why that was done. Next point here. So FM seeks additional control at the expense of user freedom. This is seen with GT bricking measures caused when unplugging the battery. There are increasingly software paired components. This started with BMS and controller pairing on the XR using RS485. This was seen with GT motor pairing, but has now been updated with our understanding as of very recently. This was dismissed by FM and proven possible by, at the time of this recording, at least one account of a member within the Onewheel community. GT pairing between the BMS and controller is now encrypted, which makes certain measures like the JWFFM chip possible on the XR and the Pint significantly more difficult to achieve. There is an example of a rider's board being sent in to be serviced by FM. FM has kept this board and not returned it to the user. There's a lawsuit surrounding this right now. FM service department has been noted to remove and not return, therefore effectively stealing third-party components off of boards that are sent into their repair facility. This means you can load your board up with whatever accessories you want to purchase. If you send it into FM and you get it back, there's a possibility that you get a completely stock board returned back to you. You lose all that value that you paid to put accessories on your board and make it your own. FM is replacing older hardware sent in for service with newer and less feature-rich hardware without customer consent. This is done even when the board is sent in for service for components unrelated to the controller and the BMS. This has been seen recently with the 4213 refresh on a community member's board. I am uniquely familiar with this problem. A couple years ago, I attempted to send in my 4210 board, which has a serialization between the BMS and the controller, and I was not able to receive a guarantee from FM that I would receive back the same hardware and firmware generation of the board that I would be delivering to them. As such, I made a decision to keep my board at that time and fix it myself, which I happened to be able to do successfully in that circumstance. Other riders, unfortunately, are not that lucky. FM has also created a totally bespoke bolt for the Pint that is seemingly designed to be harder for the user to operate and easily stripped, or altogether sheared off. So I actually have an example of that here, or had it somewhere. So this is the bolt used on the XR. This is what's called an OHB, outer hub bolt. So that fixes the axle into the rail of the board. There's one on each side on the XR. The Pint has the same thing. And you can see the difference between these two bolts here. So I can't see the frame. You'll have to tell me if you can see this. There we go.
We came prepared this time.
We did.
Look at that. Second
So
camera.
This is a stock XR outer hub bolt. This is a stock Pint outer hub bolt. So one of the biggest things you can notice right off the bat is the head is significantly thicker on the XR. Additionally, I don't know if you can see this, maybe under the lighting. The XR outer hub bolt is hex. I don't know if it's got a zoom functionality to it.
I should learn how to use my own tripod.
Yeah, possibly. Where's the focus? There we go.
It's going to focus on everything but what you want it to focus on. You have to. Do you ever watch AVE?
Oh, yeah.
Do you know how to make the camera focus?
Shout at it.
There you go.
So the XR hub bolt is a hex key. The Pint hub bolt is a Torx T20. So this can do one of two things, or at least I have frequently seen it do one of two things. It is a less commonly available bit, so it means less people are going to be able to work on the product that they paid for. And if you do have the proper size tool for it, you are more likely with a Torx bit and this specific custom designed bolt to either strip out the head or shear the head off entirely. This makes removing the motor, which is commonly why you remove these bolts in the first place, such as to change tires or bearings, significantly more difficult, expensive, and complicated. All right, where was I?
Dual camera, baby. Professional. Even got hotkeys.
So FM has taken this a step farther. So the Pint was the first board that we saw that had these custom bolts or Torx bolts or non-standard hardware. This is now seen on the rails using a Pint and a GT as an example. They use T10 hardware on the rails. The Pint uses T20 custom designed outer hub bolts on the hub locations. The GT uses either a Rye 8 or a Torx Plus 45 on the outer hub bolts. Again, we don't know which one it is because there's no documentation provided to anyone with what this bit is. There are examples of riders in the community who ask FM for this information. FM will state that they're unable to provide this. Additionally, inside the board, so if this was a Pint, same location controller in the front, battery enclosure in the rear, there is a battery tray or a BMS tray that fits over top of the BMS. That's secured additionally with two very small Torx bits. The interesting thing about the front of the Pint is once you get through all of the Torx bits to remove the enclosure and remove the lid, the PCB is fastened with Phillips screws. If there was a directive to use Torx, I personally don't understand why it's not completely used or not used at all. It gives the impression that it's only placed there to make it more difficult for the user because there are warranty void stickers that are, by my understanding, there to inhibit the rider from opening up the enclosures. And once you do that, the hardware becomes much easier to operate with and harder to damage. The GT charger has been discovered to have a PCB located right on the charge end. The cause for this is not explicitly known. Again, we don't have the information and we don't know, we don't hear anything from FM for what this chip is designed to do, but it presumably is capable of preventing third-party chargers from working on the new GT. FM has supposedly been rolling out seemingly unavoidable and or automatic firmware updates. There are reports from a few riders that I personally have heard of where the Onewheel Plus, the predecessor to the XR, which had an advertised top speed of 18 miles an hour, now is much more difficult to get up to around the 15 mile per hour mark. Next point to make here, FM is not servicing legacy hardware anymore. This is in direct contrast to Kyle's statement at 4:30, saying we're still repairing early generation Onewheel products, and it makes us happy to see those repairs and keep those products in the world. This is completely and entirely false. FM does not support repairs on service of the V1 or the Plus, and there's no reason to expect that the XR will not soon join this list. FM is not servicing boards with missing components. Again, reiterating what Kyle stated at 4:37, it makes us happy to make those repairs and keep those products out in the world. Yet FM fully clarifies that their policy is to refuse service on any boards that are missing original internal or external components. Combine this with the serialization pairing trends across the now controller and the BMS. This means that one missing piece renders the entire board completely and unnecessarily inoperable. Useless e-waste, no matter how new, functional, or unmodified the board is. The FM Glassdoor page also seems to indicate that the company culture has not been particularly healthy for a long time. Some of the comments, especially those that appear to be directed at Julien Delarue, seem to bear remarkable resemblance to long-standing community opinions and well-known open secrets about stories from insiders within FM. All of these claims and these points have evidence that has been sourced by the Onewheel community. These all culminate here in a couple questions specifically for Kyle. So we can get into those now, or we can talk about any of the above points. Or if we want to answer questions, we can do that too.
You had mentioned one thing that I was surprised by, which is that you said that I just want to clarify this is a question. If a vendor of these products gets a board and it doesn't work, they are responsible for the repair of it?
It is my understanding from what I have heard that if you are an FM vendor and there arises a situation where your board is, the boards that you have in inventory and are willing to sell are not functioning properly, that is not something that is handled financially by the manufacturer. That is something that is your responsibility.
Who has said that?
So I have heard that from a few people within the Onewheel community.
That's insane.
I agree.
I feel bad for these poor little 30Qs. Nobody loves you. I love you. You had more output than everybody else back in the day. Okay.
So do we want to get into questions? We want to keep going?
I would go with questions.
Okay. So questions for Kyle. At 7:43, Kyle states that I think there's a misconception that we are totally opposed to, and we are suing and litigating companies that are making accessories for Onewheel products. For the most part, we are wide open to letting people build the types of mods and accessories that they want to build because they enhance the Onewheel community. If FM is now pro third party, can you tell us what your favorite third party accessory is, Kyle? Why are you threatening litigation against Lewis? At 6:40, you state that as a maker, an inventor, and a creator myself, one of the most amazing things I see is to the extent which people have customized their Onewheels, and the whole industry has obviously sprung up around that. And at 7:32, Kyle states, you don't want to ride somebody else's Onewheel, you want to ride your Onewheel. So Kyle, I ask, what makes your board yours? What third-party accessories and mods and customizations do you put on your personal boards? If FM is now pro third party, does this mean that FM distributors are now able to support and sell third-party accessories without restriction and punishment? The same third-party accessories that you say give Onewheel additional value?
I don't mean to interrupt you there, but just because I don't remember if it was hit on earlier. What happens if a Future Motion authorized reseller sells third-party accessories? If they have a separate aisle?
I am not a retailer. I don't know. I don't have that contract. It is my understanding that you are no longer an FM retailer if you're caught selling third-party accessories.
And can you give just a couple of examples of what third-party accessories are to a Onewheel for people who watch
so
this?
Anything that's not sold on the Future Motion Onewheel site is considered third-party.
So, what are some very popular ones that you?
So here, I'll go grab a board. I'll be right back.
Because I don't know what those are myself. Hey everybody, how's it going?
We swap this guy out here. That one down there. Just gonna sneak right by.
That looks much bigger.
So this is my daily. This is the one that I ride to get around town. This has a whole slew of aftermarket accessories on it. In general, there's no best aftermarket accessories.
So
best is defined by what you want to do with it.
So you have this thing that goes over the wheel. It's
Correct.
like a fender.
So this is a fender. So this is a product made by Flight Fence. This is called the Flight System. So the advantage to this specific configuration is the fender is very quickly removable.
Is the benefit of this that you don't get rain all over your clothes when it's raining outside?
That is the benefit of a fender in general. The benefit of this one specifically, it's very lightweight, and B, it's very easy to clean. So I like to ride off-road. I like to ride trails very frequently. In wet or muddy conditions, you can build up a lot of material in the fender. Being able to remove this piece makes it very easy to clean that out and keep going. Continuing down the line of aftermarket accessories, tire and bearings are aftermarket in this board specifically. There are seals on the bearings to prevent debris from getting into the bearings, prolonging their life, giving you a little bit extra.
That's very useful when it snows and
Absolutely.
I go through BBS HD motors like crazy if I don't pot them properly when it's snowing and they put salt on the road. It'll just destroy everything on the inside.
Absolutely. So another very popular thing to do for typically off-road riders is a process called badgering. So this is waterproofing the board. The Onewheel is not waterproof from the factory. It is water resistant.
Do they offer waterproofing services for an additional amount of money?
They do not.
So you would have to modify it to do that.
That is correct.
Which is something that's not so making this liquid resistant so you could ride it in any weather is something that they would not support.
Correct, and this is the same company that advertises riding stock boards on the beach and through puddles, which are things that
there's a lot of salt.
Will violate your warranty.
There's a lot of salt water on beaches because you have an ocean there.
And when they get in the motor, it gets pretty dirty. So continuing on the line of aftermarket modifications on just what's that?
Somebody said
I'm
microphone.
muted. Can you hear me now?
Okay. What?
All right.
How
Do we
long
need
was
to
that
back
for?
up? I have no idea.
All right.
What's the last thing people
muted.
remember?
Kyle is hijacking the audio. That is a joke, by the way. You don't have to send another effing
Mike.
liar thing. All right. Yeah, it works now because I got both. Okay. So we will go back to the beginning of. So we were going over accessories. You mentioned that this is an accessory.
So you asked about aftermarket modifications, and I very strongly believe that Onewheel is so special because there's so much aftermarket options
Mike is not
available.
serialized. You fucking.
So I like to think of the Onewheel as the Jeep Wrangler of PEVs, right? You can build it to do whatever you want to do, just as people who own Jeeps can build them to do whatever they want to do with it. This board specifically is what I use to get around town and what I use to go off-road with. So the parts and the components configured with it aid in that type of riding. So the rails, you'll notice, are not straight. I have more clearance in the tail. That allows me to navigate over larger obstacles and go down steeper hills. The tire, while there's not much of it left, had treads on it at one point, providing more grip for off-road. The shape and the contour of the tire is different, which offers you different stability, different control. The bumpers are also aftermarket. This gives you additional clearance, additional wear protection, a little bit of weight savings. The biggest thing that you can probably see on this board here are what's called flight fins. So this is, think of it like snowboard bindings, but you choose when you want to be locked into them. So when you pull your feet together, you're quote unquote locked into the board. And flight fins give you the unique ability to go up things. As to where the board is naturally capable of going across and down things, fins allow you to do a lot more than you'd be able to do with a stock board. You'll find that pattern goes forward with a lot of the aftermarket accessories in that they provide some additional value that the manufacturer is ostensibly not providing. So there are many, many, many different ways to customize a Onewheel. This is just the first one I grabbed off the shelf to talk about. Does that sort of answer your questions?
Yeah. So these are a bunch of different little nice add-ons.
Yeah. So
you would not be able to buy
just
these.
Yeah. You can't go somewhere and pick this configuration off the shelf. You have to build it yourself. And that's what makes this space really special, right? Because people take a lot of pride in building their boards to what they want to ride.
So the question that you had, if I'm paraphrasing, is if they believe that it's a misconception that you don't support the third party and aftermarket community, then why is it that the people who sell these products are not allowed to sell those accessories? Exactly. I think that's a fair question.
I agree.
Because, I mean, these, like, just having a fender or a better bumper or a better tire or a way to liquid-proof bearings so that you can go through, salt in the road.
By my understanding, it serves to benefit everybody in that scenario. It's only going to make accessories more popular. It's only going to cause more boards to be sold. It's only going to get more people on Onewheels. It's only going to benefit everybody I know.
If you have a device that's used for transportation and it's not liquid resistant to the point where it would be able to survive salt ingress in the winter, in a New Hampshire winter when the roads are...
Yeah, so that's one of the things I tested actually on this board specifically. So I have a specific way I waterproof my own boards and I waterproof other people's boards. And I don't just put silicone on it and expect it to work. I test it myself before I make it available. I rode this board every single day through the winter out here in New Hampshire. Not once did it fail. So I take a very serious approach to proving what I do works before I make it available. What's that? Beautiful. Nice to see you, Bob. So I take a very serious approach to making sure what I offer works, and I take a very large amount of pride in truthfully stating that I would not do anything to any board that I would not do to my own.
Yeah, like just the ability to avoid saltwater ingress during the winter is something that if the I would understand if the manufacturer offered that as a service, then saying, "Hey, don't offer your own at your own business." But if they don't even offer that as a service, that's a good question.
The demand is there
because that would make this a more popular product to people who want to get around in the winter. Like if somebody made a service so that my BBS HD would not get destroyed every single winter, or I have to open it up for 3 hours and go over every fucking bearing, I would love that.
I mean, being able to endure those types of conditions brings this further away from being considered as a toy or a recreational vehicle, right? This is a utility for a lot of people. This is a replacement for a car. I've used this. I've put more miles on this every single year for the past 4 years than I have my car.
Yeah.
It's what I think of when I got to go somewhere.
People have said that, like, when are you going to get before I had a car, when are you going to get a real way to get around? I said, within 30 miles of my store, I will beat any car to any
Absolutely.
location
Same deal
with
here.
less stress, not even including the time you're going to have to waste finding parking using my electric bike. And it's not a toy, it's a tool.
And you roll up to the door, you pick it up, you walk right inside.
Yeah,
with
everybody
us.
else is spending 20 minutes looking for parking. Oh, is it
And
legal?
paying for parking.
Do I have to put a construction vest in my driver's seat so that
Right. So when you begin to look at this product as a utility in addition to a recreational vehicle, it requires a different approach to how you handle it and how you service and maintain it. And when those offerings aren't available by the manufacturer, again, that demand is there. Somebody's going to provide it.
So what would you have next on the questions?
Let's take a look.
So I didn't want to interrupt you there, but
No,
for some
not a
people,
problem.
a lot of
More than
people
happy to answer
watching have
questions.
no idea what any of this stuff. I didn't even know what the
so-
accessories were.
My favorite part is exposing people to Onewheel, preferably to get them up and ride it so they can give it a shot. But second to that, I love answering questions about Onewheel. So if there's anybody that wants to ask anything, feel free to let me know. All right, want to go forward with this or do some more questions?
Next on your list.
Next on my list. All right. Where did we leave off? Should have numbered these. So we talked about third-party accessories. Can FM guarantee that third-party accessories will no longer be stolen from riders' boards in the service center? I believe we talked about that. What specific detailed IP does FM feel that it was violated upon to the point where legal action was taken? In regards specifically to the JW lawsuit, does FM own the RS 485 serial communication protocol? Does a Onewheel operate properly without any FM app interaction from a phone? And does FM own the trademark over the XR logo used to market the Onewheel XR? Furthermore, upon that point, how is Future Motion able to repurpose the FedEx logo in their advertising for the GT, at the same time strike litigation upon someone for repurposing the XR logo in a very similar, if not identical, fashion? Next question for Kyle. You've been awarded a fairly broad patent protection on both the design and function over not only the board as a whole, but over many individual parts. Where will you and your company draw the line exactly on patent enforcement? It seems reasonable for us to assume that you would vigorously enforce these patents and defend them, as you must in order to maintain them, which leaves it pretty unclear as to what accessories you mean, beyond maybe tire sealant and add-on lights, that when you say you support third-party accessories. Does FM intentionally patent concepts, products, and accessories for the sole purpose of preventing would-be competitors from producing them? Next question for Kyle. Are there any software or hardware measures whatsoever that are present in the GT intended specifically to prevent motor interchangeability, controller interchangeability, or battery interchangeability? In FM's public denial of the GT motor being paired, it is mentioned that the GT motor is paired to neither the controller or the battery. This, in my mind, implies that the GT battery pack itself has pairing and serialization capabilities. Is this true? And are the battery packs used within the Onewheel GT paired to any other components within the Onewheel GT? Final question for Kyle. Does Future Motion have any investors, and if so, who are they? What are your investors demanding of Future Motion? How are you ensuring that investor interest does not take priority over company principles and rider safety, and what are those company principles you're defending? That is my spiel.
I don't know if I forgot, if I wasn't paying attention, or I don't see where did you bring up rider safety in this, and where do you believe there could be a concern for anybody who is pressuring Future Motion to do anything that goes against rider
areas.
safety?
If we want to go back to the bartender analogy here,
Oh yeah, the batteries.
we have no idea what's going on here on newer boards anymore. So we used to be able to see the individual cell voltages on every single battery. We used to be able to see the overall pack voltage of the battery. We used to be able to see how much battery we were regenerating when we were riding. And now none of that is visible to the user on the newer model XRs or even the GT, I believe. So that poses a safety risk if as we've seen on the later Model XRs released in Black Friday, they now have the 30 Qs reintroduced to them. And as we've seen with 4208s, these batteries will go bad at some. Any lithium battery is going to go bad at some point. This battery is far more likely to go bad sooner than a VTC6, for example.
Yeah, the problem that I've had with 30Qs is the benefit of them is that they had amazingly high output for the price at the time, and they were made by Samsung, which is a reputable brand. The downside is they go out of balance so easily, even if you match them really well in the same batch, where I'll have one line of them that's 2.6 volts and another that's 3.9, so that I'll think that I have this much power. I'll think I have like 50% battery, and then it will just cut out. So on an electric bike, worst case scenario, oh, this sucks, I'm pedaling home. Or, oh, crap, let me get out of the road and go to the side because I'm not going to be able to keep up with the cars because my battery cut off. Now, would the implication here be that the reason it's a safety concern is if your battery cuts off before you're expecting it to, that since this device is balancing you, that you would just go kind of head first? Or
that is correct. So
faceplant?
if the battery is not functioning properly, the board cannot function properly.
And is the main safety concern here, and I'm asking as a question, I'm not saying it as a statement, is the main issue here that if you think, like it'll say you have 20% battery and then you hit 19% and then it just turns off. Is that the safety concern?
So when you hit a dead battery, LVC, low voltage cutoff, in a one wheel, the typical and expected response is that the board does what's called tailback. So that's a specific type of pushback where the tail will drop gradually until it touches the ground, intended to have the rider unable to proceed. The concern with having a battery that you cannot see the state of is you don't know if this is going to kick in when it should or not, right? You don't know. And if you're pushing this board to what it's advertised to top out about 19 miles an hour, that's not really a lot of reaction time if this thing is going to incorrectly trigger, oh, I'm out of battery, and start to tail back, especially if you're in a specific scenario that a lot of people find themselves in, riding off-road, riding on rough terrain. It's a lot harder to stabilize yourself when the board decides, oh, I need to tail back and I need to stop, because there's not a single way that's going to work in every scenario to bring you to a stop safely. So being able to look at your battery before you even embark out on a ride and say, oh, all my cells are good, my voltages are proper, this battery appears safe, this would allow you to ride with more confidence than you're currently able to do on a board that does not have that information.
So the safety concern is when the low voltage cutoff will kick in, when you expect it to kick in, and how that would allow you to adjust your
That's
ride.
one of the concerns, correct.
Yeah.
Any other questions? You want to see what
That's
other
cool.
people are saying?
That was my question. Let's see. What do we have in here? What is the model cutoff for moddable one wheels? Is it only the newest models? And related, when did Future Motion start going bad? And your opinion, of course.
What is the model cutoff for moddable one wheel? So that depends on the specific model that you're talking about. If we're talking about the XR, which is, from what I understand to be the most popular model of one wheel, that cutoff occurs right in the smack middle of the 4210 generation. So one wheel started at 4206, skip 07, go 08, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. At 41 or 4210, 4144, that is when there were software impositions put in to prevent larger battery packs to be put in the board. So for example, I actually have one here. So this is your stock battery. That is 324 watt hours. You have two options when you buy an aftermarket battery for a one wheel. Two major options. You have this right here. That is the Chai Battery System CBXR. And you have this right here, which is the JW Batteries JWXR. Both of these will add a significant amount of range. So you're comparing 324 watt hours to 567 watt hours.
Did you peel the wrapping on this one?
That's how it comes from the factory.
The aftermarket one, in my opinion, looks nicer than this one.
It's fully sealed.
Can we possibly have, can we just switch cameras to show this? Because
Yep,
I was,
for sure.
I think this is important when we're discussing batteries and battery safety. Let's see if we can get this into the frame.
So that's the stock one wheel battery for an XR. 324 watt hours, 15 S2P.
And you got this is...
Yeah, so it's just a single piece of foam. You can actually start to peel it off. It's actually peeling itself off there.
What the...
That's how they all come from the factory. Compare this to a CBXR from Chai Battery Systems. You don't really see any exposed cells there. Same 15S2P, or no, it's a different configuration.
That one just looks cleaner.
I mean, yeah, you're paying more for this battery than you are for
Yeah.
a stock battery. I believe they're a different configuration. So I'm running on overdrive today.
Need some more Red Bull.
Yeah, I do.
Someone said, do you think Future Motion despises fixing their own boards from all the limitations and restrictions they put into them? Do you think they hate repairing their own boards because of the roadblocks they implement to prevent their customers from repairing things on their own?
Sorry, can you pull it up one more time?
He says,
Sort of blue screen there for a second. Yeah, so I don't know if I can speak it fully on that. The impression I'm given from what I've seen and heard about with FM is they have a stronger emphasis to replace parts versus fix parts, as to where if you have a general resistor or capacitor go bad on a board, if you bring it into a third-party repair shop, they're going to replace that capacitor for a fee, as to where if you send it to FM, they're going to just charge you for a new BMS.
if Future Motion actually cared about consumer safety, what would they be doing right now to improve their product instead of what they're doing right now?
The number one thing they can do right now, in my opinion, has to do with the XR. So this is the battery box that can contain a couple different models of battery. So, yep. So this contains the stock battery. We can actually plop him in here. Yep. So let me just get that fitted in there. So that's what mind frame, right there. Okay, so that's what the stock XR battery box looks like. This battery box is closed with a lid over the top of the device, and then that's sealed up with screws around the perimeter. So now, if we completely blow this setup and move boards around, I'm going to bring the test board in here to actually show this point. So if we're looking at the test board here, this is just standard how a battery box goes into an XR. I have the top plate removed, the bumper removed, and the rear foot pad removed so you can see inside of it. Notice that the BMS sits on the very end of the battery, the very end of the battery box. Battery sits closer to the tire. This makes the board a little bit easier to maneuver because the weight's closer to the center of the tire. However, this intersects directly with these two holes here. So this is what's used to place the foot pad over the top. This is what's going to hold down the tire side of the foot pad. And on the lid specifically, you'll notice there are two holes. Here and here. This lid sits underneath of the battery box, and the only threads that can engage the screw that's placed in this location sit above this box. So there's no need for a battery. From what I understand, working on boards, there is no need for a battery to ever penetrate through that hole. Yet, and this is what I personally understand to be the cause of most battery fires, if a screw that is sufficiently long, longer than what's spec'd for that hole, is run through by the customer, which is, in my opinion, made easier because there is no documentation provided by the manufacturer to my understanding of what screw goes into this location, you can actually pierce the battery with the screw you thread into that hole and cause a battery fire.
How would you get the battery to move over here so that
So
it
this
would
is
be
with a
under the
stock
screw?
battery. This is a more common problem with aftermarket batteries that are a little bit larger. That is not to say that it only occurs here or it only occurs here. The problem we are exclusively talking about right now is that a screw can penetrate into the battery box and come into contact with a battery when the board is riding or stationary.
So let's say this, if this was like, is there any scenario under which this could kind of like, move over?
Yeah, absolutely. So this whole board is moving around and vibrating and jostling when you're riding it. There's all sorts of constraints that are moving here. And if you look at a screw, which I should have no trouble finding, those threads act like little saw teeth, right? And those saw teeth are running right up along the edge of your battery. And when you're vibrating the board around as you ride it, that's going to be etching into that battery cell. This can cause battery fires. And I personally do not understand why those holes have ever existed in the first place. Because those screws are not to my understanding, designed to go further than the thickness of the rail because there are no threads beneath that to engage with.
That's an interesting design. It reminds me of a very similar manufacturer. I'm trying to think if I can.
So what
Their name is on the tip of my tongue. I don't know if anybody in the chat can remind me.
So what you see here, and this is actually an extremely mild case, is when those screws get threaded too deeply. I don't know if we can see focus here. You'll actually etch into that battery case.
You didn't say the magic word to make it focus.
Okay. Yeah, so that's a very, very mild case. If you are unfortunate enough to find yourself in the situation where you have run the longest screw you can find through the battery box, which is something that we have seen happen, that screw can penetrate all the way through down almost to the bottom of the tray, which is going to impose a significantly larger force on the battery, making penetration much more likely. So to answer your question of what's the number one thing Future Motion can do to make their product safer, in my opinion right now, specific to the XR, is to take those two holes out of the box lid.
What are those two holes there for?
So I personally don't understand. The screw that they are fastened to, or the screw that's right above them, has no purpose to engage with this lid. It provides no additional support. It provides no additional stability. But for some reason, it's always existed.
Here's a question. I don't have much money. I wish good luck to JW Batteries. Lewis is the reason why I started soldering with my pine sill. That's awesome, in a repair business.
Fantastic.
I wanted a one wheel, but I don't like their shitty practices. What should I do if I buy one? Don't face plant. I would start with that. That's one of the first. Yeah, what should I don't know. I suppose if you buy it, you should enjoy it?
Yeah, so the best part about one-wheeling is dependent on what you want to do with it, right? There's people that buy boards just to ride them recreationally. There's people that ride them to replace their car. There's people that ride them to replace all the components and do all the work to it. It really depends on what you want to do with it. It's a fantastic electronics project. If you know what you're doing, you're experienced, and you're willing to take the risks, that's on you if that's the directive you take. But a lot of people like to just take it out and ride it as a recreational device, and it's fantastic for that.
What did Future Motion actually patent? Did they literally slap a gyro and a wheel onto a skateboard and now no one else can? That feels too broad for a patent.
I believe that there is a link in this specifically. I can't click this piece of paper to bring it up.
Shame on you.
Yeah, but there's...
Can you make the document public so they can click it?
It should be public in the bio.
Oh. They said they needed a Google account.
Oh, great.
We'll fix it
technical
later.
Problems. Yeah, so...
We'll fix it.
FM has they have multiple patents over one-wheel components, one-wheel the product in general, certain prototypes or products that are currently unreleased. There's a lot that FM has covered legally to make sure that, from my understanding, they're the only ones who can distribute, sell, and profit from this form factor of a product.
Does changing the tire on a new board cause issues with warranty or brick the board?
So we can answer that question in two ways. We can answer it prior to the GT release, and we can answer it post GT release. Prior to the GT release, it is my understanding from everything I've seen up until that point that changing your warranty or changing your tire under your own accord will void your warranty. In Kyle's specific response that we're responding to today, I don't know if I have a timestamp here specifically, they claim now that changing your tire will no longer void your warranty. That is the extent that I understand that they have said on it. They have also stated they'll be making the tires on the GT available for purchase. That is a first. They've never done that before. So I'm excited to see what that is going to turn into. That's a great first step forward. But at this point in time, it appears that FM's policies are changing such that tire changes will no longer void your warranty. I don't know if that is dependent on what tire you put on the board. This is just all we know at this point. Again, we're not told or given or provided any special information from the manufacturer.
What type of terrain can you ride on a one wheel?
Just about anything other than soft sand or deep mud. So I take personal preference to riding like mountain bike trails. Make sure you're respectful when you're on mountain bike trails. You are the low man on the totem pole. You yield to mountain bikes, horses, people, all that. But if you find a safe and respectable place to ride the board, make sure you're wearing your safety gear. But it's an unreal experience to be floating through the woods on this or float down streets or bike paths. It's really a form of creativity where you can take it.
Lewis, I want to thank you. Without your videos, I wouldn't have been able to help out the Onewheel community back when I started repairing boards. Well, that's awesome. Thank you, Hector. I'm glad you were able to fix some boards. You
Good to
fixed
hear
more
from you, Hector.
Onewheels than I have. Are there any alternatives to Onewheel that isn't from a community-hating company? Also, is there a board from Future Motion or others that supports larger riders more than 250 pounds?
Yeah, so the GT is the largest, is the board, let me restart. The GT has the highest advertised power output that has ever been put into a Onewheel. Onewheels don't have a top speed, they have a top torque. So that extra power directly contributes to being able to carry a larger payload of a rider. So the GT is more tuned in general to accommodate to a heavier rider.
Is reverse engineering the BMS not possible?
It's reverse engineering.
Well, I mean, I think
a lot of these questions get very, very specific depending on what model you're talking about
I believe his
and what
question
revision of each model.
is related to you bricking the main board if you unplug that. And I think that there, you're not even talking about the BMS. You would be probably talking about why the main board bricking itself and you unplug the battery from the BMS.
It is extremely difficult to answer anything on the GT right now, simply because it is so new and it is extremely difficult to operate on at this point in time.
Someone asked just joined this guy a representative of Onewheel. Stop baiting him. No, he is not. He had a specifically 80-page legal letter and notice where he said he's not a representative of Onewheel. Nice try, though, trying to catch him so he gets sued.
I just love the product to death. Oh, mic's off. I just love the product to death.
Yes. You'd mentioned competitors that had received cease and desist orders. Are there any surviving competitors you feel comfortable recommending? To protect them, maybe not.
Yeah, so backing up a little bit, FM is first and foremost a software company. The reason the Onewheel is so great is because the control algorithms used to balance the board are superior to anything else that currently exists. There are a couple alternative options that exist, but you're paying a fraction of the cost and you're receiving a fraction of the quality as a result. One promising venture that's proving increasingly attractive is something called VESC, stands for Vetter Electronic Speed Controller. This is an open source alternative to the controller that lives in the front of the board here, and that allows you to do some really cool things. So if you're someone who's more tech savvy or likes to dive into the electronics or the software development side of things, VESC is more tuned for your interests. So you can change literally any parameter on the board that you desire. You can put in different batteries in it, different configurations, so long as it's within spec of the chip or within spec of the actual VESC. And we can actually, let me sneak behind you. I actually have one here. But the thing I love about VESC is very similar to what I love about Onewheel. This is a community developed product. So this is not coming from any one company, one person, or one place that's profiting off of this. The result, or the reason this chip exists is because it's a collaborative effort from the Onewheel community as a whole.
This is made to hook into a Onewheel battery?
Yeah, so that is made to replace this guy, which is your controller on an XR, for example.
This XT90, XT60.
XT60.
This XT60 is triggering me. You know why? Okay, earlier you said that Future Motion hasn't had any update logs saying what's in an update. However, with the new GT update, Future Motion had a video saying what was in it. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, so they're now, again, by my understanding and what I know, they're starting to share more information about what has changed. My personal opinion, it's all still very high level. There was a larger conflict with how the GT was released than there was with any other product. FM, much to their credit, collected a lot of that information and developed a firmware update as a result. And that's addressed, by my understanding, with the one day it's been out, has addressed a lot of the concerns that the community had with the GT. So it has drastically improved that product from what I've been able to listen in on with it. But the information, I personally am someone who's a lot more technical than most, I believe. The information's not as granular to describe what's actually changing because, again, they want to keep all that information private to themselves because that's what they use to sell their products.
The community is now very capable of using VESC and kitting an entire board from all the aftermarket parts. Don't you believe this will force behavioral action by Future Motion?
Where's that one?
Oh, I already got it off screen.
Uh-oh.
Let me find it. That's VESC.
Does not budge on the issue. Could you
this
see
is a
people
separate
building? Yeah, so the really exciting thing about VESC is it's always getting better. So the hardest part about making VESC do what Onewheel does is the motor control algorithms. And there's a ton of people far smarter than I am working on this. And again, from what I've been able to see, they're making great progress. So the more people that contribute to this, again, this is an open source project, the faster that VESC can start to achieve what a Onewheel is capable of.
How did FM send out the message to redact your statements? Email. Do you know why the GT weight limit is 275 pounds versus the XR is 300 pounds despite having more power?
So I do not know that question specifically. Again, Onewheels have a top torque, not a top speed. So I would imagine it has something to do with that. But yeah, the short of it is I don't know.
Did this replace the Segway? Is the Segway still around?
Yeah, the Segway was just invented about 2 miles from here.
So can you talk a little bit about the process that you guys use to figure out what limitations are or are not? So one of the things that I had brought up in a recent video was serialization of motors, because somebody had tried replacing their motor and it didn't work when they swapped it with a different board. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that you were bringing up is that you have to figure out what the limitations are on any of these products.
Yeah, so again, to beat the dead horse here, FM doesn't give us any information. We don't know anything about a product when it drops other than what we can investigate. And in prior generations of the product where software locks aren't really a thing, if you damage a BMS trying to test some specific component on it, for example, not a problem. You can buy another, or you can get another one from the third party used market, drop it in and continue your testing. That's made harder now that products are serialized together. But the general answer to your question of how do you figure this stuff out is it really is just trial and error. And with enough people working to solve a particular problem in different ways, you can sort of tag team a solution towards what you're trying to get at. I know this is somewhat high level, but it's hard to give you a general answer to that big of a question. But the short and sweet answer of it is it's a lot of trial and error.
Any ideas why Future Motion hides battery cell information? Perhaps because it allows people to see bad cells on packs with lower quality cells while under warranty.
Yeah, so I would also very much like to know the answer to that question. I don't have an answer that I can share here. We can talk about speculations all day, but that's not going to get us anywhere.
Your speculation is similar to what I would guess, but what is EUC?
EUC is electronic unicycle. So it's like the skiing compared to snowboarding, if you want to think of Onewheel as a snowboard.
Okay, that's about it for questions here. They were good.
Yeah, so I've made it through my massive stack of paper. I don't think we have anything here. Are you guys able to see this document?
No,
is it accessible?
Oh,
fantastic. You can't even see it.
Yeah, you have to make it public.
Give me 1 second. I'm going to see if I can do that.
He's doing it, folks. He's doing it. If you could eat with Kyle, we'll talk about this in person, what kind of place would you choose to dine at? Casey's Rib Shack. I would go to Casey's Rib Shack. Why is he so tall? He probably has superior genetics to me. That's probably it. Superior genetics. And probably better nutrition as a kid. But admittedly, nutrition only gets you so much. Like maybe max, I could be an initial 2 inches taller.
All right. Give that a refresh. See if you can join on now.
All right. You guys should be able to see that document now. It's in the link in the description. I see Nico is here. Hello, Nico. Any drinks tonight? No. I've had enough.
Only Red Bull. Only Red Bull.
I made honestly, everything that I've learned about health over the course of my life, I'm just about to throw away. I made 2 PRs at the gym today. I went from being able to do 20 pull-ups to 21, and being able to do 6 deadlifts at 315 to 8 deadlifts at 315, and I've drank an entire bottle of whiskey twice this week. So pretty much everything I've learned about health, I'm very close to throwing away.
You got to cancel it out.
It didn't actually work. Like nothing. Okay. What do we have here? Lewis is show short. Yes, I am.
Who's shouting in all caps there?
Thank you to chat for being more professional and civil. It helps. Thank you, Sonia, for being a good mod. Okay, the questions are getting stupider. Who do you think has better
stupid
eyebrows?
questions are fun.
Who do you think has better eyebrows? Probably you.
You got the better left one. I got the better right one.
Let's see. What do you think of the one-wheel BOFA? I don't know what a BOFA is.
Let's just skip that one.
So my understanding, if removed warranty is void, stickers are illegal, what is stopping people from filing a lawsuit is because Future Motion is the only company like this. I think, and I could be wrong here, but I think there's something about private right to action where this is something where you'd have to complain to the FTC or the Attorney General, and then have your Attorney General or the FTC actually do something. Unfortunately, and I'm probably going to get in deep shit with several people for saying this, the FTC has proven themselves, in my opinion, to, how do I put this? I like that there are some real fire breathers in the FTC right now, but it doesn't look like they understand how to manage enough to actually get everybody else to buy into their vision. And as a result, I'm not expecting much enforcement from the FTC on any of these issues. I'd love to be proven wrong. Please prove me wrong. Please manage the FTC better than I manage my shithole of a business. But I would love to see it happen. But at this point in time, I'm hearing from multiple different sources and multiple people that, again, knocking on the door of the FTC probably is not the way for me to actually get change done, which is kind of disappointing to me, given the amount of time and resources and effort I put into providing the FTC everything that they could ever possibly want regarding the right to repair issues that we talk about, that was discussed in Joe Biden's executive order. But yeah, again, it's really going to be up to them. So you complain to the FTC enforces this with companies. It's just there needs to be a kick in the ass for that to happen. Please ask Louis Rossman about his rack. Yo, I'm up here. Fucking prick. Let's see. Next. I think Louis should try to ride a one-wheel. Next.
I agree.
Too much whiskey this week to try to one-wheel. Let's see.
That only makes it easier.
How tall are you? I'm 5'6". It's a combination of bad childhood nutrition and probably shitty genetics.
Yeah, I'm on stilts too, by the way.
Let's see. I will work at your store in any time for $70K yearly. Yeah, I'm not hiring right now. Let's see. Need more.
Come on, we need some more good questions here.
Come on, some good questions. Usually end the stream once the questions become all trash. Can you talk more about the new GT tire motor size? Does it offer any benefits, or is it solely designed
Okay, that's a good
using
question.
aftermarket tires and swapping and repairing
That's
motors?
a good question. So, in general, tires all come in inch increments, right? That's a quote-unquote standard size. The GT is somewhat peculiar in this regard because the diameter of the bead on an XR, a Pint, a V1, a Plus, every one-wheel model prior to the GT has been 6 inches. This means, for the most part, barring certain width considerations, you can take any 6-inch tire, appropriately sized for a one-wheel, and it's going to work on the majority of the hubs. The GT specifically, for some reason, is 6.5 inches. This could be for very realistic constraints, such as thermal performance. But what this means is now the bead diameter of the tire is larger, so none of the standardized or aftermarket options tire-wise will work on the GT. This is somewhat frustrating because the biggest change you can make to how a one-wheel specifically behaves is the tire you put on it. Right? I can change how this board feels just by changing the pressure in the tire, let alone the model. And when you restrict an entire community who's very well passionate about modification of their boards to only 2 options, a slick and a treaded, it's naturally going to get people upset. Adding a little bit of fuel to that fire, there's been some problems I've personally seen with GTs where the tires are somewhat out of tolerance. And if you're on a car, for example, that's just an inconvenience because now your steering wheel is shaking, your car's vibrating, you hear this weird noise. But when you're on a one wheel and your tire's out of tolerance, the board you are physically balancing on is now vibrating, and that can be a risk. So that sets an interesting precedent for how that's going to be fixed, because you can no longer just go buy an aftermarket tire and put it on yourself, as you can do on any model of one wheel prior to the GT. So what people have started doing, at least what I've seen, is you prop up the board, you grab a nice metal file or a rasp, and you just work down the high spots on the tire. It's not the proper solution. It's not the best solution in my mind, but it's what works and what's easiest for the current time being.
Can you talk about error code 23? I was sent into it in the GT at 19 miles per hour on a stock GT. Seems tail drags are more dangerous than nose dives.
Yeah, so the GT has a notorious behavior with tail drags. Specifically, when you get it up in the air and you land, the tail likes to come down. But Error 23, to answer your question specifically here, your BMS and your controller are always talking to each other. The controller is going to ask the BMS for this much power. The BMS is going to give that much power. The whole conversation goes on that way. And on newer model boards, that conversation has a side talk to it where the controller will ask the BMS for something and go, oh, by the way, what's your serial number? Then BMS will give the serial number back. And if those numbers don't match, the controller is going to go, oh, I see a problem. This BMS is not the one that I came off the factory line with, and it's going to cause the board to tail back. So there's, in general, two ways you come off the board. There's tailback, or not tailback, there's pushback, where the tail is going to work itself to the ground in an effort to get you to dismount the board. Or you overpower the motor in what's called a nosedive, where you're traveling at a high rate of speed, the board sinks and you go over the front. The way that the board prevents you from continuing to ride is with an aggressive style of pushback that will gradually reduce the tail of the board until it touches. Error 23 is one of those ways that is caused. It can trigger for reasons that it's designed to do, such as if a BMS is exchanged and they're serialized. There's also instances where the Error 23 can occur faulty. So if you have one of these wires, for example, so if we look back at this guy, can we flip over to this camera? So these are all the cables that go into your battery box, specifically in the XR. You have similar cables on the Pint, but you have your XT60 that's delivering power to your controller. You have your communication harness, which is delivering the communication from the BMS to the controller, and you have the headlight or the tail light cable, which is running the red and the white lights on the back. These harnesses, in my opinion, are not managed in the best possible way. These thin little wires are highly susceptible to breaking or pinching or tearing. And if you're unfortunate enough to nick, tear, or damage one of the green or the white wires, what handles the RS-45 serial, the board can no longer communicate with the controller, and it's going to throw an error. One of those errors it can throw is an Error 23. That damage in the wire can occur literally any point between this connector here, all the way up the harness to this guy here, even potentially onto the controller itself. So this is particularly concerning on the harness. You'll notice there's a bit of a bend in it. Reason being, if we flip testboard Guapo over here onto the top, you'll notice that the harness, are we still in frame? Kind of. So maybe we can tilt this up.
Yeah.
So if we pull that up, now can we actually see what I'm talking about here? So the harness has to bend around the axle block. This is somewhat of a tight radius in certain circumstances. Depending on how you configure your board, there's aftermarket axle blocks that can alleviate or accentuate this problem. But depending on how this is either assembled at the factory or managed by the owner of the board, you can impose a higher tension on that cable or a bend, and you can tear wires inside the harness.
That angle is absolutely killer over here. Can you this?
Oh yeah, I can actually try and find a flashlight too if that helps. Actually,
check this out. What?
Ooh.
Bada bing.
You almost look like you know what you're doing now.
I know. It is.
Okay, so this is the bulkhead connector. This is 16 pins that plugs direct into the controller. This is all the wires that the battery box needs to talk to the controller. And if we pan this down a little bit, this harness moves down here, over and around over the axle block. Down a little bit more. Whoop, right there. Up. We're almost there. Right there. So we're going to navigate below the axle block. We're looking at the bottom of the board right now. That gets pinched underneath, and there's a little plate that fits over top to constrain the cable in there. That then bends back down and up and goes into the battery nut, what I call the cinch nut on the battery box. If we pan down a little bit further here. Further, right there. So that's where all the wires go into the harness. Another thing you have to be careful, specifically on this guy, can't have this tightened down too much. So if you shrink that diameter, where's my hand? If you shrink that diameter too much, you can pinch those little tiny wires. Anywhere along this entire length that you risk pinching that wire, you risk Error 23 amongst a couple other things.
This is insane to me. That right angle that's being made over there. That's just
this guy here.
Yeah, like right, a little bit to the left, like right. That's painful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so this is how all Onewheels are wired up. So that bend can be a little bit more gradual, a little bit more severe, depending on how the actual harness for that board is assembled.
That part hurts.
But it is somewhat common to see damages to the harness. And if a wire breaks up here, for example, you pretty much have two solutions. You can send this back to FM and you can buy an entire new battery box, or I'm not explicitly aware if they'll sell just the harness, but they'll put a new harness on it if that's possible. The way I fix these is I will remove the harness entirely from the enclosure, cut up to remove all of this shrink wrap, fix and solder the actual cable, put it back in, shrink wrap it all down, and you shouldn't be able to see any difference between it.
Could it be that they switched to metric dimensions on the wheel hub? 6.5 inches equals 165.1 millimeters. And how is the charging packed? Was it a Dell charging compact?
Yeah, so let's touch on the tire question first, and we'll bounce to that next one. Again, we're not told anything by FM, so we don't know the reasoning and the logic behind the FM tire. The first thing that comes to my mind personally is it has the potential to offer better thermal performance because it has more material to soak that heat. However, more material is also more weight, so that exactly contradicts that point.
This is a challenging
we were sort of talking earlier about how we determine what problems there are on boards. A whole bunch of guys within the Onewheel group went down to ride in Arkansas a few weeks ago. And, some guys have GTs, some guys have XRs. And one thing that was noted by that group is that the GTs were overheating significantly more frequently than XRs. We don't know why that is. It's just an observation that was made. So it brings into question, at least in my mind, I would imagine in a few others, of why that was designed to be 6.5 inches. Because I personally don't understand the point of it. I can see the reasoning behind wanting to solely manufacture and distribute the only 6.5 tire for a Onewheel, but I can't say for certain if that was the reason for it.
Okay, this is a challenging one, but it's a good one. Isn't the long screw versus aftermarket battery argument kind of proving Future Motion's point? Just might be worth thinking about how to describe the issue better, because you were saying that it's only going to go through there if you have an aftermarket battery that's larger than the original in there.
So it's not only going to happen on aftermarket. Mic'd up. It's not only going to happen on aftermarket battery. It is possible to happen on both. The issue is not what battery goes in the back. The issue is that you can pierce into the volume of the battery box with a screw, and the manufacturer has not put out any documentation or made any announcement, to my understanding, to say don't do this.
So how would this pierce this battery, because the screw is to the left of that battery?
Yeah, so keep in mind...
I'm just being a moron here, but let's...
This is foam. This is compressible, right? This whole board is vibrating around. Let's say you and I are riding trails, and you hit this awesome jump. It looks super cool. But the board comes out from under you, and it comes through the air and it lands on its side. That battery is going to compact into that screw.
That's okay. Now I understand.
So again, this whole board is at minimum vibrating around.
So
but when you fall and tumble, that battery is experiencing a significant amount of force within that pack, and because there's
significant force. See, bumbling around.
Significant force.
Yeah, there you go.
We're lucky this survived. Yeah. So I don't know if the camera's going to be able to pick this up.
I'll switch over. And
but you can see how much that battery is moving around.
I will zoom in give me a moment. At some point I'll learn which way to zoom in and zoom out.
There we go. Caleb's going to really like seeing his sticker on my test battery. Go watch Pushback Podcast if you haven't seen it yet. Highly, highly recommend. Whole bunch of fun going on.
So let's go.
Cool. So if we move the battery around, you can see how much I can sort of shake it around, vibrate it inside that pack, right? One of the advantages, I very strongly believe, with an aftermarket battery is it's larger and you don't have that room for it to vibrate around. That battery is going to be snugly fit inside that battery box, and you don't have that freedom for the pack to move around within it. It's very well constrained within that battery pack because within that battery box because it's designed to fit it to the greatest capacity as possible.
I'll never touch a board in my life, but I love seeing videos and streams on this. Keep it up. Thank you, George. Let's see. What do we have next?
So if we can stay on that topic for one more second here.
Oh, yes.
So the battery's not the only thing that can move around. The BMS also
let's get that on.
is capable of moving around.
Zoom that a little bit.
So let's look at the bottom here. So, and keep in mind, in all fairness here, the battery lid is removed, so there's going to be a lot more room to move around right now, but the point is still valid. There's no screws or bolts holding this guy down right here. I'm very specific in where I touch this so I don't short it or damage anything here. But there's nothing that's going to hold that down other than the cables that are plugged into it.
EM3EV doesn't use any bolts or anything, but they have this, it's like a piece of foam that's sticky on one end, and then silicone around the sticky foam on top of a piece of plastic so that it's like, it's not moving anywhere.
Yeah, so none of that exists here.
I was under the impression that since you had taken this apart,
be
you were
careful
using
to
it for...
touch that.
Since you had taken this apart, I won't touch a flathead over there. But since you had taken this apart, I figured that if there were any sort of material holding it in place, that you removed it to make it easier to plug in different components.
So what we see right here,
it comes from the factory like that?
what we see right here, and this specific battery box is in the process of modification to accommodate for an aftermarket battery. The main differences between this and a stock pack, actually, if we can zoom in a little bit here.
Sure.
So this wall has been removed to clear out room for the extra cells, which are up my in frame here, right there. So that wall is present on a stock battery pack. But what the BMS specifically rests on is those nice little comfortable plastic ribs. I don't know if you can see those right there. But it's just a little bar of plastic. There's no foam, there's no insulation, there's no vinyl, nothing.
That would never happen to an EM3EV battery.
So, again, this entire board is vibrating around when you're riding it. So this BMS, actually I have a dead one here we can touch and not damage. This BMS is moving around significantly inside of that battery box. And what that can cause, and I don't know if I have one here, I actually do. What that can cause is you can actually start eating through the back of the BMS. And if this gets severe, I don't know if you can see some of those wear lines. I'm trying to get a glare on the light. So let me get a nice pointy tool. So I can tell just by looking at this BMS, if this was one that was shipped in, for example, for repair. Where is this frame?
There we go. The part you want to focus on.
Just the whole BMS in general. I'm trying to get the glare. So I can tell, if this was to show up at my shop, I can tell this came from an XR specifically because it has those wear lines in it. Right? That is physically eating into the conformal on the back of the chip, if the conformal is present, and eating into the back of the board if it's a severe case. So there are certain, I don't know if it's a countermeasure, but there's certain things you can do to prevent and mitigate that wear, but to my knowledge, that has never been done by the manufacturer to the battery box on the XR.
Let's see. What upgrading a trotter with a VESC, bigger battery, and better motor cooling might be an easier long-term solution if future motion won't cooperate?
Yeah, so it's possible. Again, the best depends on what you want to do with it. There's no one best anything here. That in particular sounds like a whole lot of work. Cooling alone will take you a while on this type of product. It's very, very compact and high power.
When will you ship Josh to Canada so he can show off wicked modded Onewheels and Vest to Linus Media Group for awareness? It's not a bad idea.
I would love to. That would be a treat.
Idea. That's not a bad idea at all.
I've heard they got nice trails up there too. That's enough to get me up there for a week.
I don't know. Tag Linus. Ask him to do a video with Josh.
Linus, let me know if you want to ride a one wheel.
He would probably be much more open to riding it than I would right now.
We should get you two to race.
Oh, God. How hard? Let's see. Where's the next one? There was one. Has anyone pressured Adam Savage or Corridor Crew or celebrities or influencers to comment on this?
I would love to hear Adam or Ren, for example's input on this.
I'd be interested in Adam Savage's input.
Yeah.
Okay, where is...
If any of you know Adam Savage,
let
us know.
Makes complete sense. Thanks for explaining. That was the guy that asked about the battery screw.
Fantastic. Happy to help.
Very cool. Yeah, with Lewis Rossman, Gamers Nexus, and all the others that cover products in depth and challenge manufacturers' BS, why do you think companies think they can still get away with anti-consumer actions without significant backlash? Okay, so what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to take a graph from Social Blade that shows my subscribers from 2012 to 2022, and then Apple stock price from 2012 to 2022. Then I'd like you to do another one of Rich Rebuilds' subscribership from when he started his channel to now, and then Tesla's stock price from then to now. We literally have no effect. It's literally margin of error, if anything. Yeah, because it works.
All All right, I'm having fun with these questions. Is there any more?
Oh, there's a ton. Let's see. Let's
How many
see.
people we got in here?
We have 1,309 people.
A few. Okay.
At the top, I think it was like 15 or 1,600. Okay, let's. Wait. Congrats on the 315 pounds, 8 deadlifts. Do you deadlift sumo or regular? Regular, I don't know how to do sumo without intense pain. I don't know how that works. Shoes or barefoot? I was barefoot for. I usually start with shoes and then I do barefoot for the heavy set. Thank you for being a light in the world. I appreciate. I don't think I'm a light, but thank you. I just think I forgot to move the light out of frame.
There we go.
This is a light on the world, but again, it belongs over there. What is your favorite mod besides a tire that you've done to your board? I don't want to buy a new Onewheel, and I keep modding my 4209XR because I can fix it.
Yeah, so I'm going to sort of overlap my answer here with favorite and best. Depends on what you want to do with it. My favorite place to ride these boards is, in general, off-road. So I particularly enjoy flight fins just because I like that locked-in feeling. I like that comfort that it provides when I can just bomb down a trail and feel secure. So that'd probably be my number one answer here.
Who in their right mind engineered this? How is any of this safe? The BMS thing was surprising to me because if you look, there's a video I did on the live channel 2 years ago of opening up an EM3 EV battery, and you can see the way they mount the BMS. It's not screwed in there, but again, you could see that they have the dual-sided foam sticky thingy, and then silicone stuff around it. Like, it doesn't move around, and it's pretty shock resistant.
Actually, here's a really good point to talk about from Oscar. So Chai battery, that's a great point to bring up. So aftermarket companies are aware that these screws are a problem. And to date, to my understanding, FM has not done anything to make aware or address the problem of skewering longer screws into the battery box. Aftermarket companies, specifically in that comment, Chai Battery Systems, who makes the CBXR, have little stainless steel plates internal to the battery. What this means is instead of that screw, if you're unfortunate enough to put one too deep into the rail, it's going to rub against that steel plate, and now you have at least a non-zero amount of barrier to prevent that screw from rubbing into the battery. That's also part of the advantage you get from going to like an SLS shop, for example, because we can put those steel shims in no matter what battery there is.
Oh, that was a good one, but I scrolled past it. Come back. Do you think the reason Future Motion didn't put a new motor on the board is because Future Motion thought they could have been lying and didn't want to risk putting a replacement motor into the world? Huh? I'm confused.
So if we're talking about the GT, the motor is comprised of two parts, right? So let's get some motor parts out. So I just so happen to have one right here. So this is the three main components to an XR motor. This is your powerhouse. This is your muscle. This is what gets the board to turn. This is your hub. This is what the tire attaches to. All that is copper coils. It's nothing fancy, and 3 Hall sensors.
I like how browned they are.
Yeah, so there's a reason that one's out of the board. Doesn't work anymore.
Looks like mine.
So this is your motor. This is the beads that your tire... Can we flip to this camera real quick?
Mm-hmm.
So this is the motor that... the hub to the motor on the XR. This is the bead that the tire attaches to. Standard 6-inch diameter, nothing special. Magnets on the inside. This guy here slots inside of that hub. This is what your motor is comprised of. You have a plate that goes on the top. This part here, what's called the stator, has not changed since the Onewheel Plus, at least functionally. The assembly appears, again, we have no information from the manufacturer on this. This is what we're able to inspect, detect, measure, what have you. The stator design itself appears to not have changed. It's the same exact one that's in the Pint. It's the same one that's in the GT. It's the same one that's in the Plus, same that's in the XR. The only thing that changes is the plug on the end of it or the axle piece that's pressed into the middle. So the power isn't so much dependent on the motor or the stator inside the motor as much as it is the controller and the BMS and the battery that's driving it. if that answers the question that I already forgot what it was.
Wouldn't be anytime soon. Linus is currently sick with COVID. That's a fine time to ride a one wheel.
Gives me time to ride over there.
Linus is a huge supporter of right to repair. He does appear to be. Hope he gets better. Hope he gets better. Lewis, why don't you open startup one wheel board?
We got to get you on a wheel first.
The reason I'm not starting another company is because I already almost destroyed my first company. Yeah. When I fix my fucking repair shop and make that solvent again, I'll start focusing on starting other companies. I had a small loan of $1 million. If somebody would give me a small loan of $1 million. Let's see. What do we have next? Linus in socks and sandals on a one wheel. No, I'm pretty sure it would kick him out.
That's
if he did
iconic.
that. There's probably a mod that exists that will like notice if you have socks and sandals and just, you know, puncture one of the batteries, just light it on fire to get you off of it. Did you ever consider getting into YouTube yourself? I'd love to watch you record, stream your work. I was bitching at him last time about
So
that.
Lewis has been pushing me to create a channel here. It's something I've been thinking about for a while.
Just do it.
You know what? I might throw a channel up here soon. We'll see.
Like you have to look at like the first repair videos I did. If you have any sort of doubts as to your skill set or whether it'll, like they sucked. Like honestly, the first 3 years of my channel were absolute dog shit, and people still watched it anyway. So like, there's really no place to go back.
I'm not opposed to the idea of throwing up just a live stream every once in a while.
I used
in
to
the
use,
shop answering questions like this. I'm having fun right now.
I used to use mold denim wire for jumpers. I used to use what was it? There was this like green. There was this conformal coating pen that didn't use UV that just looked like spooge all over the board. I think I used LVDS wire that almost looked like speaker wire for my jumper. It was trash.
Mm-hmm.
Like my first videos were absolute trash. And everybody, you have to get the shitty videos out of the way in order to get to the good ones.
Right.
But everybody will forget the shitty ones.
Yeah, I hope you're right.
Unless you mention them on a live stream that has
They're going to be
1,000
real
people.
shitty. I'm going to warn you.
At which point they're all going to go back and look at them and laugh at them. Oh well. Let's see. How far would $1,800 get you into making your own?
So this is what I do with all my boards. I have only ever bought one board from FM. That was my first one. Every other board, the multiple that I've had and still have, are all purchased used. Reason being, you get a very significant amount of savings going used route. The benefit to someone looking to get into one wheel right now, as opposed to when I got into it, you have an entire national network to leverage on and an entire community who is invested in integrating you into this sport. So if you're looking to learn anything, the Facebook groups, the subreddit, literally any public outlet for one wheel is going to welcome you with open arms. That's just the nature of the sport. But if you're looking to build a board for $1,800, my recommendation, get on Marketplace, look at what's close to you, find a couple links, hop over to one of those groups or reach out to your local service provider at stokelifeservices.com, see what they think of it, pick it up, and have them run a full inspection on it, make sure it's good to go.
Any interesting thoughts or news on the Pint X?
Pint X. So before the Pint X existed, I used to say that the One Wheel XR is the best board to ride, the Pint is the best board to carry. And if you put that on a spectrum, the Pint X sits right in the middle now, because the Pint has the frequent drag if it doesn't go far enough, but the Pint X with a little bit more weight now goes that stock range of the XR. So that is extremely powerful for a lot of people in a more urban environment. It makes commuting much more viable. I actually got one recently, and I've really been enjoying it. So yeah, I mean, if you live the type of lifestyle where a Pint X suits you well, absolutely go for it. Yeah, just be aware in general, you're going to get more stability and speed on an XR. You're going to get more nimbleness and responsiveness on a Pint.
Colin did a video on Linus' second channel, Short Circuit, about the Pint X, but they didn't address any of the issues with future motion or right to repair. I mean, he's a big right to repair supporter, so I'm confident that given the opportunity or chance or time, because he's got a bunch of different topics he talks about, that he'd be open to mentioning it. You're not going to know everything about everything when you're talking about so many different devices on a regular basis, so I don't blame him for that. Do I just need JW chip for 4212 to see voltage in CBXR?
Depends on the firmware. So there's a outlet you can reach out to on JW Battery's website. They can for sure help you out. All you have to tell them is your hardware and your firmware revision, and they're going to let you know what you need to get.
Is it illegal for a service company like yourself, Tronics Fix, Northridge Fix, etc., license or not to use warranty void stickers? I'm pretty sure if it's going to be illegal for the manufacturer, that it's simultaneously going to be illegal for me. But here's the thing: I don't know if this just pertains to opening the case of the device or the screws of individual parts of the device. But I would be leaning towards no. We used warranty void if removed stickers in 2014 and 15 after we had an experience where somebody swapped out the board with something else. And admittedly, even after those stickers were messed with in the future, we never really voided warranties based on it. It was just a tool to allow us to gauge whether or not we were being scammed. But around 2016, we stopped doing it altogether because it really served no purpose and it was just a waste of stickers and money. But I would imagine that it is indeed illegal.
Yeah,
so we should not have been doing it.
Within the context of working on Onewheels here, I don't speak for every shop here. I speak just for myself. I don't ever have an urge to get into those stickers because, again, the most valuable thing here is an informed consumer. And if you want to learn how to work on your board, I want to help you get there. So if you're interested to learn how to do that type of stuff, it's to neither benefit me nor you to put a warranty sticker on it.
Has the Onewheel people reached out to you for some sort of discussion, and would you take the offer if they would?
So I have not received any input from Future Motion in any capacity. I, like many people, would love to engage in a conversation with them on this. That is completely up to them at this point. We've tried to reach out from an SLS perspective on multiple occasions and have yet to hear a response.
Yeah, these people would love the ability to work on their products. They want to provide an amazing experience for their customers. They are directly financially interested in the company staying in business and continuing to produce these products, because if they stop producing the products, then he'll have less to actually be able to repair. And, Future Motion has done a lot to actually get people involved and excited about this as a product. So everybody here is interested in them doing very well.
Explicitly, I do not speak for SLS, but I have a very strong inclination that they would agree that we want to work with Future Motion very, very much. It would be, from what I understand, what I've been told, to the benefit of all parties involved if we can begin to provide the services in an OEM capacity.
Linus employee here, why are we talking about us so much? Somebody suggests...
You guys need to ride Onewheels, call me.
Yeah, so somebody in the chat, Alex, by the way, I'll make you a mod. Somebody in the chat asked if Linus would want to ride if I would fund Josh going to Canada to show Linus talk to Linus about Onewheel.
I will ride my Onewheel to Canada to Linus to do it.
And then a bunch of people just started kind of going off of that. But that's about that.
No, let's make this a thing. This is going to be fun.
But yeah, and then they all started talking about other random stuff in there. Let's see.
Linus, call me. You know you want to ride one.
You have a better chance of getting him to ride it than me.
We'll see about that.
Let's see. What do we have here? What's this? Thank you, Tina B. That's very kind of you.
I thought that said Taco Bell.
You're hungry, aren't you?
Might be.
I'm a little bit hungry, too. It's about time to get out of here. Okay. Was it a Dell charging connector? Says LGR FBS.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Was it a Dell charging connector? What is it?
I believe he's referring to the GT charge connector.
Oh.
By my understanding, no. So I actually did look into that after the first video. From what I was able to find, it does not look to be the same charger. From what I currently understand, it appears to be a proprietary port.
Considering modability, repairability of the XR, in contrast to the GT, how long do you feel the XR will remain relevant?
Fantastic question, Justin. Thank you so much. The XR, in my mind, is still king. I personally do not care if the GT can hit 90 miles an hour and go for 1,000 miles, because if it breaks, I'm not able to fix it. So no matter what breaks on this guy, I know how to work with it, and there's a certain amount of comfort and therefore value in the XR platform for me. For that reason alone, I see the XR living a very long lifetime past today, because I believe a lot of other people have that perspective as well. I would love for GT to do the same thing. It just hasn't been out long enough to know if that's the case.
Do you think it would be possible to reverse engineer the 4213, 1455 plus BMS firmware to be able to report the cell voltages? Would make modding more accessible to later XR models?
So it would be extremely difficult. I'm not going to say it's impossible, because that's just not a good habit to get into, but it would be extremely difficult, expensive, and time-consuming to get through the encryption that I believe is present on that revision. Yeah, so it's one thing if they encrypt that data, it's another thing if they take it out entirely.
Let's see.
And also, if we haven't... Oh, wait, hold on. If it hasn't been explicitly said yet, everything that I and we are talking about is purely based on experience. None of this is being communicated as explicit fact. This is just what is personally in community known to be the most accurate information at this time.
Did Lewis miss anything that was wrong about Future Motion since now they're threatening? I'm going to cover this in a video tonight because I literally didn't get the legal notice from them until I was at the gym about 20 minutes before I came here. But there is a...
Yeah, that was quite a surprise.
Yeah, that was a surprise. But so I'm going to do a video on that tonight. The absolute TLDR of it is there were several people that reached out to me about changing the motor and saying that it didn't work when they changed the motor. When you have the fact that they did the thing with the battery where when you unplug the battery it's going to brick the board, that seems like an extension of that. And the people who were reaching out to me with that information were trusted technicians, some of the same technicians that confirmed the error on the board when you unplug the battery. The way everybody figures this out is by unplugging things and messing around. They said, okay, there may have been some other error that caused this to happen. So there is a chance that they are not serialized. So I'm going to be addressing that in a future video. Now, the interesting thing is in that video, I showed you a customer service email ticket history where they said, we will not fix this board if you send it back to us. There's not much that we will be able to do for you. So
the one without the motor.
Yeah, so if, let's say there was something else that was causing a motor to not work with that, we're not going to know what it is because they were not willing to service it, which is, again, a big part of the problem that we are discussing here. So let's say there was something else wrong with that board that was causing no other motor that was putting it to actually function. How do you know when the company is unwilling to fix it, even for money? But yeah, there is a chance that I was wrong about the serialization issue, and I'm going to be covering that in a future video. As you guys know, if you watched any of the Henrik Husby case or trial, I've defended Apple against an independent repair shop owner and a parts vendor when they were correct. So I have absolutely no problem eating crow if I am indeed wrong about something. And I did do 4 follow-up videos to that without a law firm reaching out to me. So if I am wrong about that, I will be covering that in the follow-up video that I release tonight. Most likely tomorrow, actually. I'll film it tonight, but I have Comcast internet in New Hampshire, not FiOS, so it's usually better if I take a flash drive and give it to a pigeon to fly off to send to YouTube.
2 quick things to add on to that. So the situation you're under here is not unique, right? That's how we learn everything here. We can make a discovery in one direction and very quickly realize that this is not correct, or it can be something that's discovered a long way down the line that we have to correct. This is part of the inherent problem with not having a streamlined, direct, and efficient line of communication with the manufacturer. This is a situation that's unique to FM, right? We don't have these problems talking to e-bike companies or scooter companies, EUCs, e-boards. This is...
If you could send an email and say, hey, by the way, what happens if I unplug the battery? Like, what is that would allow you to know exactly
what's going on. Right, but if you go to FM, let's say you lose one of these outer hub bolt screws, for example, and you ask them, hey, what's the size of the screw for this? It's a standard 1/4-inch drive, 3/8 screw, I believe. They won't tell you that. They'll say, we don't have that information available to share. It's just, I don't personally understand it, but that's the direction they're choosing to operate in.
Let's see. Thank you for an excellent response to Kyle's video. Your responses were concise and professional. I hope Future Motion watches this live stream. Thank you. Oh, thank you, Sonia. Did the legal notice make you deadlift harder or worse? Better, because I actually I recorded it, but I accidentally mounted I put my little action camera on the place where you hold the weights, and it fell right off. So you can only see the first 3 deadlifts, but I usually am only able to do 6 deadlifts for a set. 6 deadlifts at 315, and I did 8. So I want to thank Kyle and the lawyers at Future Motion for giving me the incentive that I needed with that to get 2 more deadlifts than I've ever gotten in my life. So when I was 188 pounds, that was the most I've ever weighed, I got 6 deadlifts at 315. Now I weigh 159 pounds, and I got 8 deadlifts at 315. And I will credit Future Motion with that. What Onewheel should I buy, says Underhill.
The one you can afford.
And Josh seems biased a little bit towards the XR.
For myself personally, yes, but the best is relative to what you want to do with it.
What one wheel should... let's see.
Where to buy old one-wheel models? Marketplace is a fantastic outlet to find things that are local to you.
Have there been a follow-up lawsuits for the people who have been killed by operating the one wheel, says Wes.
So there are a number of class action lawsuits. I'm not familiar with them surrounding exactly that, wrongful death, injury, but I'm not too familiar on it to speak with it.
How much do you weigh? 159 pounds. What's your max bench? I don't know my max bench. The last time I ever tried was 285, but that 285 is also back when I can only do 7 to 8 reps at 225. Now I can do 11 reps at 225, so it's possible, but I haven't tried for max in a long time. I've been trying to beat Dan's record, which is 12 reps at 225, and he talked some shit last week, so I have to get this done in the next week or two, or else I'm just going to be eating crow every single day that I go to work. It's important that you demoralize your employees as much as humanly possible. I'm not going to be able to do that if one of them outbenches me. Okay. Just kind of want to like ground their morale like, down into little pieces of dust. Okay. Like a...
What happens if we unplug the battery? Do not advise. Yeah, so I mean that's a typical response, Justin. We asked them a question that, from my understanding, is extremely reasonable to ask. What happens if we unplug it? And if we don't get an answer, we're just reiteratively told, don't do it. And the risks aren't really communicated there, and the consequences, both good and bad, if there are good and bad, also aren't communicated. We're just told not to do it. It sort of feels like we're being treated like children to some degree, in my opinion.
I think we've gotten to the end of good
Have you
questions.
forgotten that you were riding a one wheel and then remembered? Yeah, so you ride these things for one season, not even a month. It really does become an extension of your body. You don't think about, you don't have a throttle stick in your hand like with a e-board. You don't have handlebars like at the bike. You just lean through where you want to go. You really don't think about it. It's a very freeing and natural experience. What have we tapered off to? How many people?
Did you find out about Bafang and Serialized Motors? Was it BS? Bafang is an entirely separate company altogether. And let's see. Why is bald Kirk Cameron in the thumbnail? That's the CEO of Future Motion. That's not Kirk Cameron.
What can you say about the GTXR mod? Nothing right now. It's definitely an interesting solution to a problem that appears to be quite relevant.
Can one wheels handle rough mountain dirt roads with potholes everywhere? That's most of the terrain.
Yeah, if you put a board under a very capable rider, I think most people will be surprised with what these things are capable of. There's a very large amount of people who can take these things on mountain bike trails that most people would think are not possible to ride on.
Toilet paper over or under? Well, I usually prefer to have it under, but apparently in the patent for toilet paper, it's over. I know this because I was having an argument with a girlfriend who is now an ex-girlfriend because we would spend 1 or 2 or 5 hours arguing about things like this, which she'd bring up the patents for toilet paper, which is, yeah. Anyway, best a relationship in the past. But anyway, it is indeed, the toilet paper is supposed to go over. That is how it is in the patent. However, in my home, I have an unauthorized toilet paper mod where the toilet paper is under. I also prefer bidets in general. Okay. Who is here? Sorry.
Ren.
I've privately spoken with Adam
Ren,
Savage
call
about
me,
this.
or I'm calling you. All right?
I've also spoken
Be ready.
directly with Future Motion. I'd love to record a conversation with Kyle and Julian. You have his number, right? Vice versa?
Ren's my best bud.
Okay, beautiful. Okay, that's amazing. Does FM offer battery replacements, says Soren O?
Yes, asterisk. If your battery is bad and you elect to send your board into FM, outside of warranty, you're paying shipping both ways. Inside of warranty, it should come out at zero cost. FM will replace the battery. You're only ever going to get a stock replacement battery, however.
Have you been denied warranty service for your toilet paper? Oh, for fuck's sake.
I thought that question was going somewhere.
Have you heard anything new about one-wheel GT overheating issue?
I've heard that the motors run hot. I do not own a GT. I do not have one here.
What is hot for a motor? 'Cause I think the max I've ever got my BBS HD to hit was 60 Celsius.
Yeah, so you can get one-wheel motors up. So they're measured in Fahrenheit. I believe you can flip the units, but I've seen them in Fahrenheit on one wheel. A hot one will run in the 150s, 160s, 170s.
I tried to. I was just like putting 3,000 watts through it on a warm day, and I found a road where I could just put 3,000 watts through and just like keep going, and
so
I couldn't get it over 60.
The number one way you heat up a one-wheel is by going uphill or going over something pretty chunky, right? Because you're going to be demanding a lot more torque out of that motor. That's going to drive more current. That's going to produce more heat.
Greetings from Germany, Lewis and Kyle. Keep
Oh,
up the
hi.
fight for right to repair. A lot of my friends and colleagues know your videos. You raise awareness to everywhere in the Western world. That's awesome. Has anyone gotten a DWI on a one-wheel?
I do not know. I would imagine
He only
that it
drinks
is
Red Bull,
possible.
so-
That's right. They can't catch me. I'm too fast.
What company should I buy LiPo batteries from? I don't know.
These people are still listening to us just ramble.
Yes.
This is amazing.
There's 11. We're almost back up to 1,200 people, too.
I don't believe this. Now we're at 1,200.
Let's see. How do I get one-wheel service outside the U.S.? I'll leave that to Josh.
So, service is a broad term. It depends on what you want to do with it. If it's something that's relatively easy to fix, reach out to SLS. Reach out to me at bare minimum. I'm more than happy to help you troubleshoot remotely. If it's something that needs to be shipped back to a shop in the States, and it doesn't require the full board, the benefit of SLS is you don't have to pay shipping for the full board. You just ship what is determined to be bad. That can result in a significant savings in cost. If you don't have to ship the battery, then you can air freight it back over here in a matter of days instead of months or weeks.
Does future what are your thoughts on the suspension kits for the XR? I recently got the KR 5.0 and I'm blown away by the ride now.
Yeah, so suspension is one of those cool niche mods that you can do for a one-wheel. It's going to allow you to negotiate over rougher terrain. A lot of people like it for that. I personally don't have it just because I tend to regard the pressure in the tire and the bend in my knees as my suspension. But yeah, a lot of people like it. I've only heard good things.
170 Fahrenheit.
Yes, Henry. Yes, Henry. Float effect.
170 Fahrenheit is 77 Celsius. That's hot for a motor. Yeah, I tried to burn an old BBS HD. I could not get it past 60 Celsius no matter what I did.
Yeah, so there is a thermal cutoff for it. I don't remember the number off the top of my head. But it is possible to overheat the board to where it will say, I'm not able to go any further. That's a problem that is more prevalent from, again, what I've seen with the GT than any other model. But if we could bounce down in the comments a little bit further, all caps. Float effect. I'm going to bring it up again. So shameless plug here. One of my really good friends, Cameron Ridge, produced a short film around one wheel. We talked about it a little bit early on here. I highly, highly recommend you go watch it. I have a routine problem that I have to explain to people everything that one wheel means to me, and I can't do it quickly. That video is now what I use. So if you're looking to, spread the stoke and get more people involved in the sport and aware of it, I very much would appreciate if you guys would spread that around. Cam would love to see the attention on it too.
Does Josh have a YouTube channel? We're working on it.
Lewis is yanking my arm on it.
Okay. Greenies for the cats. What solder braid do you use? I use Gutwick.
I use whatever the hell I can find on Amazon over there. I got a whole bunch of it. It's like NTC or something. These questions are fun. I could do this all day.
Greenie, let's see. More
If you
voltage
get
or amps
detailed
to go-
info and serialization.
More voltage or amps to go faster. You want more volts to have a higher top speed, and you're going to want more amps to be able to get to that top speed faster.
Yeah, so a higher voltage pack in general is, for the context of a one wheel, is going to make a punchier pack.
You could also cheat by using field weakening, but you lose torque, and that just kind of feels dirty.
Yeah, you can also, this is sort of a convoluted answer, cranking higher amperage at the same voltage is also going to produce that punchiness. But the GT, part of the reason why it's more powerful is it now runs a 72 volt pack instead of a 63. That extra voltage really does help
Thank you, Zero G.
become more powerful.
Yeah, on an e-bike, I have to be much more careful with my shifting if I'm using a 52-volt battery versus a 72-volt battery, because like my first gear, my top speed is 9 or 10 miles an hour. So being able to get the first gear to go to 13 or 14 or so, it's a lot nicer, without any loss in torque. What is the fastest speed achieved on one wheel?
So, are we talking stock one wheel, or are we talking modified one wheels?
Are we talking about something that could be admitted publicly? I have only gone 19.9 miles an hour in New York
They
City.
can
on my
go
e-bike.
fast. We'll say that. The one wheels have a top torque, not a top speed.
Do you like cats, and do you have any?
I do not have any cats.
He only has Red Bull.
unfortunately. Only have Red Bull. That's right. I got a Roomba. He's right there. It's my employee. Wheel fun stuff's in
Will
here?
it go up hills?
Oh yeah, it'll go up hills. So it's not going to climb up a wall. Again, a higher torque battery, a smaller diameter wheel is going to give you a little bit more torque. You can go up some steeper stuff. GT can go up some pretty steep stuff.
Does Josh have an OnlyFans?
Not yet.
That's probably why he doesn't have a YouTube.
That's right.
Power
Only
Motor
for you,
community-
AJ or Kyle, whoever's running the account right now.
Power Motor community love one wheels, and I've been trying to spread the message. Some people get it, some don't. Wish
Yeah,
more
so
cared.
I have a couple buddies who run paramotors. They're fantastic.
What's a power motor?
A paramotor is a big parachute. You have a wooden or a fiberglass prop on your back, and you go to a field, you spin up the motor, and you just go up in the sky.
So you have a parachute, so you can
Yeah,
fly.
you're riding wind currents. Yeah, so
So you-
it's a plane and a parachute combined into one.
But you can fly.
That's right.
I didn't know you could fly.
Yeah,
I
so
wanna fly.
there's a couple cool videos of people who will take off from a one wheel.
I'm going to try that.
It's also just a good way to get around an airstrip.
Could you use it to get around New York City? And then you would not have to
A
deal
one
with
wheel?
traffic.
Absolutely.
No, not that, the flying thing. With the parachute.
I think you would run into a few more issues than just getting in the air.
I'm going to try that the moment
Let me know how that goes.
I'm going to try that. Okay.
Is it possible that use third party? I don't know. I don't work with an FM. I have no idea if they use a third party to answer customer support.
Are there bearing swaps for GTs available?
There are. So the GT uses the exact same bearing as the Plus, the Pint, and the XR. So any bearing that is compatible with prior models, excepting the V1, will work in a GT.
Any tips on how to keep a board healthy when riding in dry to damp beach conditions other than badgering?
Dry to damp. So you said a keyword there, beach, badger. Get that sand out of the board. You're going to want both enclosures badgered. You're going to want the harnesses treated, and you're going to want the bearing seals completely sealed up. Badgerwheel.com. Robert's going to get you taken care of. As far as riding beach goes, you're going to want to drop the pressure down as the sand gets softer. That's going to preserve your battery a little bit more, and just whatever you do, stay out of that damn water, because salt water will absolutely destroy these boards.
Seems like there's plenty of anti-right to repair and anti-Lewis Rossman comments in the One Wheel subreddit at the moment. I get the feeling it's being astroturfed. I don't know. I wouldn't assume that. The last time that I've ever had that happen to me was with resellerratings.com with a video I did in 2013, where I had like thousands of comments showing up every day that just said spam and misleading, spam and misleading, spam and misleading from random accounts. And when I looked into my YouTube analytics, all of the viewership on that video was coming from like Vietnam and Malaysia and shit like that. But that was like 9 years ago, so I wouldn't assume that. There's a lot of people that don't like me. There's a lot of people that can have fair criticisms of things that I say, and I wouldn't assume that that's what it is unless it's blatantly obvious.
I'm sniping more comments I like seeing here. So, yes, if you have a board, no matter what model it is, and you're exposing it to water, sand, snow, salt, whatever, badger it. The kit is very much worth the price and will save you a significant amount of cost should you ever run into water damage or corrosion, because that is not a fun, cheap, or easy thing to deal with when compared to sealing up your board proactively.
I think the few more things you'd run into would be buildings. Well, no, the idea is that I would fly out in a place like Bed-Stuy where you don't have tall buildings, and once I'm above the Empire State Building, then I would start accelerating forward towards my store, and then I would land.
You better be quick so they don't catch you. I don't know what we're betting on for Bart Miller here, Justin, but I'm with you.
What is the average one-wheel motor efficiency?
I don't know off the top of my head.
Yeah, how are you going to really be able to tell with no information, like what the watt
Yeah,
hours and miles is?
so there's three things that affect the efficiency, the range, the power consumption more than anything else. First one is where you ride. So if you're on flat ground, if you're going uphill, downhill, off-road, whatever. Second is how aggressively you're riding. Gentle riding is going to obviously have a higher efficiency than if you're going full tilt, trying to get everything you can out of the board. Third thing is just general conditions, right? So is it windy? Is it cold? Do you have the tire pressure set properly for the weight? Do you have nice aftermarket bearings that make the motor a little bit more efficient? All those things really begin to matter because there's a fixed power output on these guys. So whatever you can do to squeeze every little bit of efficiency out is to your advantage, because there is no option just to turn up the power dial on any FM hardware.
How do Onewheels do in winters and places that use a ton of road salt?
Badger it well, and it works. So general rule for a Onewheel, treat it like a puppy. Don't leave it in a car. Don't leave it in your trunk. Don't leave it in a shed. Don't leave it in a garage in the summer or the winter. Reason being, they don't like high heat. They don't like extreme cold. So as long as you keep it inside, I mean, I was riding to work this winter when it was negative 30.
You wouldn't step on a puppy.
I would not. No, I would not take a puppy almost 30 miles an hour down trails either.
You said you do mostly off-road. Do you prefer a slick tire or a treaded?
So it depends on what I want to do. If I'm riding city, I'm riding slick every day. If I'm riding off-road or a mix between, I'm going to keep that treaded on me just because I like the feel a little bit more. The reason I like slick is just because it's going to get me that little bit of extra range.
Yeah, it's flowing effects. Have you gotten people that want you to repair their GT yet?
I have had a few people reach out to me. Again, I don't do any repair that I would not be comfortable and intimately aware of to do on my own board. So we're still very much in that stage of figuring out what's possible and what we're capable of doing at this time. Once that starts to become more well-known, then at least myself personally will hopefully be able to start offering some support for the GT.
Comment. Thank you, Melanie. Let's see. Nobody ever thanks me for reading their comment. Can I be a mod? I don't know who you are, Cameron Ridge Media. Does anybody here know you? Can anybody vouch for you?
Cameron Ridge Media? I think I know that guy.
You think you know him?
Yeah, so that's who made the float effect. That's one of my really good buddies.
Okay, there you go.
Make him a mod.
Can you discuss the fact that Future Motion can limit the performance of your board after you purchase it? Since the GT app update yesterday, my XR is no longer performing the same.
Yeah, so this is a bit of a fun one to answer. I don't know if we want to necessarily get into all this. Part of the problem of not having a clear, concise line of communication with FM is no one really knows what goes into these app updates. So we have seen that it's doing good things for the GT, it's changing stuff, but there's no way anybody but FM can validate if it's only changing the GT. And that's not to say that anything is for certain happening on non-GT boards, but there is no way that we can tell at this current time.
Did you upgrade your one-wheel board, and what did you change? He showed a bunch of his modifications
I
earlier.
upgrade every single thing that I own. That's just who I am.
Is there a third-party engine to install?
So there's no third-party motor stator to date.
Have you ordered a TFL Enduro tire yet? Are you excited
I have
to try it out?
multiple on the way. I'm very excited to try that tire. Jeff, I'm looking forward to trying your creation here.
Time to wrap it up, guys. You look exhausted both.
I'm having fun. This is great.
Josh is having fun. He has more Red Bull than I do.
That's right.
Aren't hoverboards supposed to be fire hazards, or have they fixed that?
I just don't like to think about those anymore, to be honest.
I don't know much about hoverboards.
It's probably for the best.
Don't feed your one-wheel chocolate. In response to the puppy. What is your Myers-Briggs personality type? I hate those fucking tests because they always have questions that could be answered in a number of different ways depending on the situation, and they want one specific answer.
I'm just going to give 4 random letters and say that's A, B, X, T.
X and VJ. Let's see.
I'll be right back. I need to reload.
I reminded him of Red Bull. Thoughts on fangs? Larger tire diameter equals greater speed but less torque, no? Wow,
Fangs or tire diameters? That's 2 different questions. Fangs are great if you're a new rider and you want to build up a sense of security and stability on the board because it does do a certain degree of, or it offers a certain degree of protection should you find yourself in a situation where you're nosediving. From what I've seen with the countless people I've seen grow into the one-wheel board sport, as soon as you begin to get moderately comfortable, things are more of a hindrance than they are a benefit because they reduce your clearance. Some people keep them on their board long term. Other people take them off within a week. It really depends. Like most things one wheel, depends on what you want to do with it.
Can I have a Red Bull? No. It's just not good for you.
I got one more.
Jesus Christ. What is this shit made of?
It's actually just pure battery acid.
Sugar,
You drain
glucose,
these out right
taurine.
into
What
there.
the fuck? Eat a battery.
It's fantastic.
This seems like it's dog shit. I don't know. There's better ways to get energy.
It's
God,
gonna be
what
going
am
this long.
I drank a bottle of Fireball on stream the other night, so who am I to criticize? Josh has been up for like 36 hours as Cameron Ridge Media.
Yes, I have. That is true.
How do we get One Wheel as a sport sponsored by Red Bull? Did you try
That
to
would
get
be
into
special.
contact with the management of FM to discuss these issues? I'm sure they'll hate you, but you have the audience.
Yeah, I mean, like we've already covered at multiple points. My mic on? Yeah, like we covered at multiple points here. I mean, I very much hope that they see this video. I hope that it has a positive influence on everyone in this space, and I really do hope for the best here. But there's a very bright future ahead if we can all work together.
The
here.
idea with the document that's listed below is to turn this into an actual back and forth conversation. Let's see if that's possible.
Yeah, I mean, if FM's going to title the video "A Conversation with Kyle," I'd love to engage in some form of discourse.
Thank you, Randall Smith. And the fucked up part is since the camera fell down, I have no proof that it actually happened. I guess you could hear the clanks, but anybody could make clanks.
We can just give you a whole bunch of one wheels to pick up.
What is different about the original one-wheel motor and the newer motors?
So the original one-wheel motor is completely different in its design. I don't know the specifics because I wasn't riding one wheel in the V1 days of if it's from a different supplier or just a different model. But the bearing size is different, the axle size is different. It's a solid axle, not a hollow axle. So the cooling performance is a little bit different. It's just an all-around different motor entirely. It's the same size. But pop open a new tab, look up one-wheel V1 motor. You'll see exactly what I'm talking about here.
What is the difference? Oh, never mind. I think that's the exact same question. What is the difference between the OG one-wheel motor versus newer Hypercore motors?
Hypercore is made specific by FM, to my understanding. I believe the V1 may have been an off-the-shelf motor, although I could be wrong with that.
Rentis Shred Shop said, I had a very good conversation with Jack Mudd a couple of weeks ago. 45 minutes left me feeling better about a lot of things. That's all I
Good.
can say
That's
right now.
really relieving to hear.
I don't know who Jack Mudd is.
Jack Mudd is the chief marketing guy at Onewheel.
Oh, wow. I hope you guys are able to have a better relationship, both the people that actually ride these and the people that fix
I
them.
would love to interact with those guys. They seem like a ton of fun.
Because that's the thing that motivates me here is, like, the relationship between people that fix Apple products and Apple, like, that's fucked. It's like, this actually has a chance.
Yeah, so...
You actually have a chance to, like, work out your differences, work out your issues while the company is small, and then have something that's better for both the customer, for you, and for them.
So here's the really cool thing. When we get into quote-unquote on-season here, when all the snow disappears, one-wheelers sort of embark on a couple pilgrimages. There's a very dedicated following behind certain events where all of us go to ride trails and just hang out for a week. I look forward to it every year. It is better than Christmas. It would be so much fun to start spending time not only with all the people that we go with every year, but also to see the FM guys there. It'd be a treat.
Do you think the manufacturer would actually make more money if they implemented your suggestions?
By my understanding, from what I've seen for the years I've been doing this, it would definitely make the sport more popular. That hopefully translates to more sales for them. That really benefits everyone here. I mean, we all want the same thing. It just appears that we want it in slightly different ways. We all want everybody to have a one wheel underneath their feet.
Are you going to arm wrestle me, or are you too chicken? I lost arm wrestling to Monique Pereira in junior high school, and I still haven't lived it down 23 years later. So I probably am still too chicken. Although, admittedly, back then I weighed less than most of the girls in my class. That was embarrassing, though. Never forget. Let's see. Halloween is better than Christmas. Fight me. No, it's not. Get the fuck out of my chat. Let's see. From your observations of riders, do you have any recommendations on riding safely? What's the worst you've seen from customers, safety-wise?
So the number one thing, if your feet are on a board, you have a helmet on your head. That's just baseline. There's really no exception to that. Let me actually answer the question he asked here. Yep. It's the worst you've seen. In terms of injuries or just riding dumb?
People doing stupid shit, I imagine, is what he's talking about.
Well, we can define stupid shit in a multitude of ways. So there's experienced people doing stupid shit, and then there's inexperienced people who think they're experienced doing stupid shit. Protect your collarbones. I think that's the most important note to make right now. If you go over the front of that board or you come off in any way, tuck and roll. Don't slide. And good luck.
What are your thoughts on the work Matthew Shoemaker, Tech Rails, is contributing to the community? Is there anything new you'd like to see him develop for the Onewheel?
That man is a genius. So Matthew Shoemaker is an absolute pillar of the community that popped up. He makes a lot of the higher tier aftermarket accessories. So we're talking about rails, we're talking about axle blocks, motor plates. His stuff is extremely high quality. I have a lot of respect for what he does. Whatever new things he can find to mill out of aluminum, I will support it. I fully trust that man.
Dave Jones watches everything that I do, so you have to say aluminium or he gets mad.
I'm sorry, hi to who?
Dave Jones from EV Block.
Hi, Dave Jones from EV Block.
It must be aluminium.
Oh, aluminium.
I'm not willing to say color with a U, though. That's just too far for me.
Gotcha. Color.
I don't even know how you're supposed to... Color. It just sounds too pretentious. But I'll say aluminium. As someone who's very unsteady on his feet, how would you go about acclimating to a one-wheel?
So I genuinely believe that one-wheeling is easier than skateboarding. If you step on a skateboard, you're working to keep the board underneath your feet, per se, as to where the one-wheel is working to stay underneath of you. So it really does look more difficult than it is. And the nice thing about FM software is you can tune certain modes or certain configurations of how that board's going to respond to user input. User input being how the board is oriented. So the easiest way to get used to the board is take it to a tennis court, hold onto the fence with an open hand, don't put your fingers through the chain grate, and just go back and forth along the length of the fence. You're going to naturally pick up the balance and the body mechanics to balance, and just look where you want to go. Don't look down at your feet. The rest is pretty much automatic.
Can you drift with a one-wheel?
In certain scenarios, it's possible.
And where can people find you, since I'm...
So, more importantly, you can find your local service provider at stokelifeservices.com. You can find me on Facebook, at Permawheelie, same thing for Instagram, just PERMAWHEELIE. My Facebook, my company page, Fiction Factory Boardworks, that's where I do a lot of the outreach and communication shop-wise. If you're in the New England area, hit me up. You're in my territory. I'd love to meet you. I'd love to go ride sometime. And if you need anything, hopefully you know who to call.
Thank you for taking the time to do this.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much.
And it's a pleasure coming by.
Always.
Thank you, everybody, for watching. That's it for today. And as always, I hope you learned something. If you want to check out a copy of this document, it is in the link down below. My apologies for not having it shared publicly in the beginning. If you were to re-click that document, it should show up now. And also, it looks, for any of you who are open to this,
can they see it?
JW Batteries is still being sued, and they have spent over $100,000 in legal fees so far. And they opened this GoFundMe towards this goal because they were being sued by Future Motion. after making that chip that allows you to put a different battery into your device. You could check out Leonard French's video on this. Leonard French went over the case and why he believes it's based on really not a great foundation. And I just figured, yeah, I would share this. We may actually be going out to Texas to visit him, depending on how my schedule is, so that we can kind of give a tour of his facility and also do an interview with him. I think that would be kind of fun if you guys would be open to seeing that. And I am going to get out of here and also deal with my legal letter that I got from Future Motion today for my most recent video and go over that. That's it for today.